was, but here it had to go through one more approval
No,
process.
that's what we're looking for sure.
Yeah, gosh, was it 4 years ago? We did a flag design competition.
Oh, did you?
We'll just see who applies and, yeah, I appreciate it.
Was it for you? Oh, really? I don't know if you've seen Rochester's flag, but it's
I think you did a great job again.
Good Lord.
I'm always
Is it?
impressed. Well,
I'm
good
sorry.
sign.
I can tell.
She's sitting way back there in the corner.
Don't worry.
Way in the back?
That's our live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Before we get started with our meeting, I'm going to turn it over to our city clerk, Kelly Giesler, to share a few announcements about the logistics of this space.
Thanks, Council President. Hello, everyone. I'm Kelly Giesler. I'm the city clerk. And first of all, thanks for joining us over here tonight at this sort of last-minute shift. We're having some issues with our audio-visual equipment, as I don't think that's a secret to the world. And so we're over here tonight in this lovely space. Just a couple of things about the room. First of all, if you do need to use the restroom, and we ask that people come in and out of that back door there, and it's just straight out the door, forward, and they're right, you can't miss it. For our teammates, we'll be running slides from the back of the room. So if you have slides that are already part of the presentation, then you just need to say next slide. You don't really have the opportunity like we normally would to run your own slides. If you have a presentation that you need to run, you'll either need to plug in or email it to Rachel right now so she can do what we need to do back there. A little bit about the mics. They're all wired, but they're special kinds of mics. So when you want to talk, you need to get your mouth on the mic. And then when you move away, it doesn't pick you up anymore. So there's no on-off, but it's, I would sort of call it a pseudo live. So you need to lean in. And that goes for everyone. And I just want to say thank you to our Mayo Civic Center friends, Jeremiah and Doy and Monica Coppett, for helping us pull this together, and especially for our very helpful AV team back there, Mike, Dan, Jason, and River. Thanks. We appreciate all of the work that you did to pull this together today, and thanks for joining us for the meeting.
All right. Thank you, Clerk Giesler. With that, please rise as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, welcome everyone to our council chambers for the day. Really pleased to have you all. Thank you for making your way over here and joining us for our June 3rd, 2024 City Council meeting. I always give a couple reminders before we get started with open comment. We do have many staff and council here in person, but we do have people joining occasionally virtually, so just give me some grace as I toggle back and forth between our Zoom screen and here in person. And a reminder that we do take breaks every 90 to 120 minutes. And just council colleagues, I want to be really careful today about making sure that we're speaking to each other through the council president. So if you'd like to speak, please make sure that I see you and you've indicated that you'd like to speak before we, and are called on before we share dialogue. All right, with that, we begin every meeting with our open comment period. This is an opportunity for those from the public who would like to speak on an item we are not taking comments on further comments on during a public hearing later in the agenda. Each person has up to 2 minutes to speak for a total of up to 20 minutes. Just know that I am keeping track of time through through this method today, this little stop clock and timer here, but I will indicate if you're getting close on time and ask you to wrap up. We just want to make sure that everyone who would like to speak has a chance to do so. Your comments are to be directed towards me as the presiding officer. If you do have materials you'd like to hand out to the council and the mayor, please hand in back to Clerk Giesler, and she will make sure that we receive those materials. We just ask that you are respectful in your comments. Of course, we welcome feedback, but we really encourage you to bring up issues that are relevant to what council as a body can affect policy-wise. We don't respond during open comment, but if there is something you'd like follow-up on, that you please do make sure that the clerk has your information and staff or council will follow up with you. I think I have everything, so I will go ahead and get started and call on you in the order signed up, and I have a Greg Kemple. And please introduce yourself, Mr. Kemple, and you have 2 minutes.
Does this mic work?
It sure should.
Okay. My name is Greg Kemple. I live in Norman Walls District. This spring, when I received my tax statement, I'm a native of Rochester. I've lived here my whole life. I just left long enough to serve my country, and I came back. I've lived in Rochester ever since, but, you know, I've lived here my whole life. I live out in northwest Rochester, and it kind of really floored me that our local government, I'm forced to live on a budget, okay? And I know you guys have a budget through local government. But when I opened my statement and saw that my taxes went up 39%, that's quite a slap. I don't object to paying my fair share of taxes, but there needs to be something done as far as a ceiling put on this or something. This is the second time this has happened. I've lived in my location now for 22 years, and this is the second time the city or the county taxes have hit me 39% all in one shot. That's $1,000 in 1 year increase. Come on, folks, we can do better than that. You know, I contacted Norman, and he is the one that encouraged me to come down and say something in tonight's meeting. This is ludicrous. So, you know, being a native of this town, you know, I love the city of Rochester. You know, I feel that I have every right to say something because I've spent my whole life here.
And it's time to wrap up.
Okay, well, that's all I have to say. All right?
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Kemple. Adam Busby.
Good evening, City Council, Council President, Mayor. I'm speaking today because some time ago, I sent an email to all of you regarding our drivers' concerns about a promotion that was made within the transit system. And then I did a data pool, and in response to that, one of our council members wrote back they forwarded my email that I sent to you all to the person in question. And at the bottom, they said, FYI, I do not take any action or do any follow-up based on notes from Mr. Busby. I represent a large group of drivers that the city should care about and should follow up on. What this is telling the staff in question is, hey, do whatever you want to do. You can take close to $200,000 of taxpayer salary, and we don't care. We won't do any follow-up. We won't do any checking up. I speak with the backing of the international. I don't never come here without the backing of the international and our local for the ATU 1005. And when I speak on a group of drivers that you all should care about that's doing city work, I don't expect this kind of stuff. This is not the way to run government. You don't say, I don't do any follow-up. I represent a large group of people doing city work. That's not good government. You don't say, I don't do any follow-up. It's just unconscionable in my opinion. I couldn't believe it when I read it. And I don't appreciate it. I feel it very disrespectful to me. I feel it very disrespectful to the 100 drivers that I represent. It's just not good government. As always, and there are many council members that reach out and take the time to discuss things with me. I really appreciate it. I'm not firing at all of you, but the one council member, it was uncalled for. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Busby. And then I'm sorry on this next speaker. Atanika? Annika Lex?
Annika Lex.
Thank you
yes.
so much. Go ahead, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, I am new to this. I come with Adam to these meetings. I just wanted to say that it was pretty disheartening to see that email that they don't do follow-up with Adam. Adam not only represents all those drivers, but he represents me too. And there are times where a lot of us can't even stand up for ourselves. And like, I understand you guys can't please everyone. You make hard decisions. It is what it is. But to hear somebody say, I directly will not be listening to this person who represents so many people and is doing all of this to help so many others is just, it's honestly sickening. And then to sit there and follow up with a phone call with Adam and say that you basically don't care and, you know, saying that I wish I could stop you from speaking at these meetings and everything else, like, it's honestly kind of disgusting. I know you guys don't always want to hear what we have to say, but it is your job to listen, and you don't have to agree with it. But I mean, you know, we come in here representing so many people, and it's not just the drivers. It's just as a whole, the union stands up for, and it just kind of hurts a little bit. I'm so new to this, and to just see that interaction in my first few months in my position as the steward for the Sun Transit drivers, it just, I don't know, it makes me nervous. It kind of feels like only a small handful of you actually care what's happening, and the rest of you don't. Especially when I hear stuff like that, and, you know, it just, I don't know, that's pretty much it. It just really sucks.
Thank you, Ms. Lex.
Thank you.
Barry Skolnick.
Hi, I'm Barry Skolnick. First, I want to talk about item H2, which is the Downtown Historic District. With the reimbursement program, I wish it would have taken greater account of the economic status of some of the different businesses. Some may not be able to absorb a payable loan, causing further deterioration of their building because of them already being overloaded with debt. So I'm just asking for a little flexibility. I like the overall program, but I'd like a little more flexibility. Like, for example, if a building is on the verge of collapse, I would like the person to be able to get some kind of financial thing. They can't make it with 50%. And the idea that it's skin in the game, sometimes people have thinner skin. They could have diseased skin. So the point is that I do think there's a need for the small business owner who doesn't have the economic resources to be able to sort of save their buildings. I don't want it to be solely based on the money. The other thing is, I don't know what happened to the tax abatement. I know that had been in there before, but I don't see that in there now. The last thing is the consultant working on the planning for the historic district. I think the plan that's being sent out should be amended to include the Heritage Preservation Commission to have input into the formulation of it, as well as to review and advise the council on the final report. I mean, they are the community representative. I'm not on it anymore, so I don't have any skin in that game. But I'm just saying I do care about what happens, and they are people who are there to do that, so I really think they should be included in the list on that report. Anyway,
Thank you.
thank you. I just like the ideas of the incentives. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Skolnick. John Kriesel.
Madam Chair, members of the council, and Mayor, I'm here to address the H2. I and others within the Historic District look forward to collective and progressive partnerships that will provide real grant incentives from the city, suggesting a total mix of 80-20 relationship via DMC funds and city grant funds. I will state that building owners and those that lease these spaces from them continue to have real skin in the game. By that, I want to further say we're still here. Those that chose not to have skin in the game have already left, such as tax accountants, attorneys, small businesses, dentist's office. Those that left and are still here went to Circle Drive for a new downtown and West Circle Drive. We are losing our soul. It is your charge to decide what kind of future you want in downtown Rochester. I will suggest that without real incentives, I want you to think about what happened when the DMC started the infrastructure work in downtown Rochester. I will suggest that the majority of the people that had retail operations downtown lost about 60 to 70% of their revenue. Then COVID was the final stake in the coffin. That only lasted about 3 years. This next development with this bold move forward is going to last about 7 years plus. I can't imagine who's going to be or want to be in downtown Rochester with losing another street, losing another avenue during all this construction downtown. So to have a loan that you have 5 years
Final
to pay
thought.
at no interest without increasing your revenue, how do you expect anybody to pay it off?
Thank
We're
you,
going to
Mr.
end up
Kriesel.
having an empty downtown. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Final call. All right, we'll close the open comment and officially call the meeting to order. Clerk Geisler, are you comfortable calling the roll from the back?
Absolutely.
All right.
Councilmember Keen.
Here.
Councilmember Bransford.
Here.
Councilmember Wall.
Here.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
Here.
Councilmember Palmer.
Here.
Councilmember Dennis.
Here.
Council President Carlson.
Here.
Mayor Norton.
Present.
All right, thank you, Clerk. And Administrator Zelms is away, but Mr. Parrish, our Deputy Administrator, would like to share a few thoughts.
Yeah, Mayor, President, members of council, really glad to see you here this evening. Appreciate the opportunity to be in this venue. Of course, we start the reports off with just a grounder in our RISE values, and I won't go through all those, but they're certainly a good lens for our team. If you could advance to the next slide. I'm going to just do a few breezy updates. I think first and foremost, it's that time of year, and people are really excited about the aquatic season, and so a number of great opportunities in the community to enjoy aquatics, both at Silver Lake, Foster Erin, Cascade, Lincolnshire Splash Pad, and then certainly the much anticipated, soon to be announced opening day for Soldiers Field. So really appreciate the team that's putting an amazing amount of work into that, and looking forward to the festivities coming forward soon there. A couple of quick transit updates. We are moving along to some work in the downtown, and so there'll be a temporary relocation of some of the downtown transit bus stops. So just kind of be aware out in our different communications that transit center stands G&D are going to temporarily relocate. And another, I think Council President Carlson this morning at a meeting said it's a parking lot, but it's a parking lot that you can really be excited about. The transit team has delivered the 75th Street Park and Ride, which is a great opportunity to pull off and get into downtown. They've also programmed that. And so I'm excited to starting to accept commuters into that. It's free parking for folks. There's great amenities on site. And so the new route will have a express service, and something that people can definitely be excited about. Last but not least, we're moving on to the Riverside Music Concert Series. If you could advance one more slide. And the public music team has really done an excellent job of bringing forward another great lineup for the community to enjoy at no cost. And it's kicking off July 14th with Everclear, so that'll be an awesome event, and really hoping that the community has the opportunity to join people at the Riverside Music Series this summer, presented by Think Bank. And then last but not least, certainly not least whatsoever, our good friend, Public Works Director Wendy Turry. This is her last meeting with you. She retires this Friday, and so I would just ask the folks to give her a nice round of applause and thank her for her service. And I think we can safely say she'll be gone but not forgotten, and she'll be around. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Wendy. All right, Mayor Norton, over to you.
Okay, I have a few announcements today. If we could go to the next slide. The Munster, Germany delegation is coming on June 6th through 8th, and then the larger Climate Smart Municipalities German delegation will be visiting on the 12th and 13th. There we go, next one. On June 8th, we would just like to offer an opportunity for the community to meet Mayor Marcus Leva, who is the mayor of Munster, our sister city that we've been working with for about 7 years now. This is his first time coming. He sent staff in the past and city council members, his second mayor, but he has not been able to attend until this year. So we're looking forward to having him here. And Marcus is an avid biker, so bicycle bike, not motorcycle, to my knowledge. So at 9 a.m., we're going to leave City Hall. If anyone would like to join us at City Hall and ride with us, you can do that. We'll be driving through town, and folks will be kind of showing him some of the things that are happening in downtown, some of our walkable, bikeable lanes. At 12:30, we will be at Cascade Park. That's where we will ride to. We will be having lunch. At 1:30, there is a tree planting. And during this time, they have some videos about Munster, Germany, and they are Germany's bikeable city, and they will show you their, 3,000 bike, I can't say car, garage that they have, and I think they have 2 now, but they had 1 when I was there. So they have some video that they're happy to share how they do biking in Munster and walking. And then at 2:30, there'll be some presentations by some German interns that are here in Minnesota, and they'll share their projects, and hopefully we'll learn a little bit about Cascade Lake and water quality there. And then we will end the day biking to Little Thistle, where there's kind of a welcome event. So we invite the community to join us. It should be really fun, and Marcus is a very serious first mayor, which is a mayor administrator, but he loves biking, and they said he'll have a hard time after having sat still for meetings for 2 days without a bike ride. So we're going to provide him that. Next, please. We've talked about the Rochester Visioning Project that we're kicking off this summer. If you or someone you know has a group or a club that would like to be part of this opportunity to provide input to the city of Rochester about what you want our city to look like moving out 25 years from now to 2050, please call my office and let us know if you'd like a presentation. We'll have opportunities for individuals to present and fill out some forms. We'll have them in a multiple number of ways throughout the summer and fall. But if you'd like a presentation, just call and we'll arrange that, and you can call the mayor's office. Next slide, please. It is National Gun Violence Awareness Day. We've been doing this in the city of Rochester for a large number of years, and that is Friday, June 5th. There'll be an event in City Hall where I'll read a proclamation in support of National Gun Violence Awareness Day. So that's happening this week. And lastly, a reminder of our board and commission vacancies. We've had a couple of new ones, and the last one is not on there, so I'm just going to say the library board has an opening, music board has an opening, park board will have 2 openings at the end of the month, pedestrian and bike advisory has 1 opening, planning and zoning has 1, police policy oversight has 2, and the Sustainability and Resiliency Committee, our youth representative has just graduated from high school and is moving on to college, and he will need to be replaced, as well as 1 adult member who is, I think, is moving out of the city of Rochester, and we will need to replace that. So those openings will be available, and I'll be doing interviews in the month of July, maybe even here at the end of June, and would welcome you to share with colleagues, friends, and or apply yourself. That's all I have today.
Thank you so much, Mayor. All right, we'll move on to approving the order of the agenda. There is one tweak that I might recommend depending on what consent items end up being pulled, but for now, I just invite a motion to approve the order of the
I want to
agenda.
move to approve as presented. Second.
All right, any discussion? Councilmember Keen?
Yeah, depending on what gets pulled in from the consent agenda, we want to make sure we do our business in the correct order.
Okay. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right. So Councilmember Dennis, are you still pulling items F5 through 7? Okay, so this, in my perspective, necessitates a slight reorder of the agenda. So here's what I'm going to say, and I'd ask for a motion in 2 parts, I think would be the easiest way to do this. So because F5 is about the historic district that's already been approved by DMC, I'd like that to go before the current item H2, which is the city incentives related to the historic district. So I'd ask for part of the motion to include renumbering the order of reports and recommendations section to include F5 as the new H2, followed by the current H2 historic district item to become H3, and then items F6 and F7 will follow as H4 and H5.
So moved. Second.
All right, let's just dispense of that item. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, the second motion is to approve in block items F1 through 4, F8 through 17.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Yes, Mayor Norton.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make comment that I realize on, is it F2? No,
F3.
F3, that we are renewing the alcohol liquor licenses for 2 a.m. closure. And I've been listening to a presentation recently and talking to some other cities who are moving away from 2 a.m. closing and moving it up to either 12 or 1. I know that will be controversial. But what I would just, I know we're going to move ahead with this today, but I do just want to raise this issue that cities do have issues, reduced sales at those hours and increased after hour or late hour incidents, which we've already had some this year. So I would like maybe to have a discussion about that at some time in the future. So I just wanted to say that perhaps that's for another day.
All right, thank you for those comments, and we will move on for now, but come back to that at a future discussion. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, we will move on to our public hearings. I always take a minute to quickly go through the procedure for our hearings before we start. So we invite staff to give a quick presentation, then the applicant or representative of the applicant has a chance to present for up to 10 minutes. We open the public hearing. If there are any who would like to comment, pretty much same rules apply as open comment, but you have up to 5 minutes each with no time restriction. But we do encourage you to keep your comments brief. Close the public hearing. The applicant would have a chance to provide a rebuttal for up to 5 minutes, and then council and the mayor can ask clarifying questions of the applicant or staff before we do a motion, discussion, and vote. So with that, we will start with item G1, which is the final plat, number CD 2024-008 plat to be known as Mercy Hills Second. And I will ask Jace Pater to introduce the item. Go ahead.
Good evening, Council President Carlson, Mayor Norton, council members. Jace Pater with the Community Development Department. Before you is CD 2024-008, a final plat by Farmland LLC for a subdivision of 28.6 acres into 38 residential lots and 2 outlots to be known as Mercy Hills Second. Previously, there had been approved interim use permits which allowed for the land alterations that included moving more than 100,000 cubic yards of material, and a preliminary plat and a general development plan, which this final plat is consistent with. The Community Development Department is recommending approval with 4 conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pater. Is the applicant here? All right, come on up. Please introduce yourself, and you have up to 10 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Adam Plushcourt. I'm with Woodseth, one of the engineers on the job. Jace did a great job. I don't have a whole lot to add. I just want to say that I'm around for questions.
All right.
And the owner's aware of the 4 conditions, so.
Great. We will get back to you. I will open the public hearing. I don't have anybody signed up to speak on this item. Would anyone like to speak? Hearing no one, we'll close the public hearing. And do any of you have questions for the applicant or staff? Councilmember Keen.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but the amount of dirt being moved here is substantial. Is there a standard for how that is confirmed that it won't have negative effects on neighboring properties?
If the applicant wants to step back up, please do.
Yeah, that's good.
Hey, yeah, we're required to put a stormwater, like pollution and prevention plan together, and that includes all the earthwork. Things like silt fence and erosion control blanket and different things are part of that plan. And then we did go through the interim use permit for the substantial land alteration for that. So does that answer your?
Again, I'm just making sure you guys are on notice. With that sort of major changes, I do worry about that. But it sounds like, do you work towards a standard, or you just kind of, does some engineer say, looks good enough?
So there's an on-site inspector throughout the job. So that SWIP, the Stormwater Pollution and Prevention Plan, is a living document. And they're required to abide by that SWIP throughout the project. So both the contractor has to be, it's called SWIP certified, to follow that throughout the project. As the dirt's being moved around, it kind of changes, right? And then we have a SWIP certified person out there inspecting as well.
Oh, that's helpful, thank you.
Yep.
Another question, just on it struck me that the size of the outlots are abnormally large. Is there any reason for that?
Yeah, a few. The one outlot is basically designated for future development.
Okay.
That's why it's so large. They'll do a plat process on that one in the future. Then the other lot, there's a huge wetland that isn't going to be touched, and a stormwater pond that's included in that outlot. And then another portion of that is access to that pond.
Okay.
So for maintenance and stuff, the city needs access.
So the big outlot would be platted at another time.
Right, yeah, we're just, phasing it.
And then the wetlands, would the long-term view of that be owned by the association, or would it be owned by the city, or what would be the
So-
version of that?
The outlot that includes the wetland is also the outlot that has the stormwater pond, which is going to be, the city is going to be taking over maintenance and stuff of that location, yeah.
After it's built through your team?
Right, yep.
Okay. One last question. There's a reference to a TIS waiver. I'm not
Yep.
sure what that is and who gives it.
Traffic impact study. So
Okay.
we're required with any development to do, either get a waiver from the city, basically saying that the roads around it have the capacity for
Good.
something like this.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Yep.
Councilmember Wall?
Thank you. Not only has a lot of dirt been removed, but many trees have been removed. Some trees have not been removed that I think present a hazard to a neighboring property owner. How open is the owner-developer to receiving information that would make more safe the adjoining properties?
Yeah, I mean, he's fielded a few phone calls, I think particularly about the lots you're referring to, so he seems open to that. I think he's been in conversations with multiple homeowners about the trees particularly. Yep.
Okay, open to ensure that their safety will be paramount.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Keen?
No, I'd move to adopt a resolution approving final plat CD 2024-008, plat by Farmland LLC, to be known as Mercy Hill Second, 4 conditions for the subdivision of 28.6 acres into 38 lots and 2 outlots.
Second.
Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
No, again, I do have concerns when I see this sort of like the amount of landscaping that needs to be done, and I'm glad that they are working with, I'm glad they're working with experts and getting the right people to work towards the right standards for this, to protect both the homes that are going in, but also the neighboring properties.
That was well said. Any other comments? Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. The only comment I'd like to make is that I'm not in support of this, and most of you know why. We have an ability to say yes to these things because of the way our UDC is set up. We claim to be a city of sustainability and resiliency, and moving this amount of land nowhere matches with sites design, which is the building skin on out, the component of LEED. And when we continue to grow in a way that's not sustainable, it doesn't match the very slide that we put up at the beginning of all of our meetings. And I think it's time that we actually look at the way we do things, why we do them, and how we can improve the future with the amount that our city's going to be growing in the next 10 to 15 years with Bold Forward Unbound. I don't think anything like this should be done in the future. I think we need to preserve the land that we have where it is. We need to add green space. We continue to have a declining tree canopy, even though our urban forest master plan was approved. And I would like to see some changes at our city level for how we go about doing our developments and doing our design, so that we're not just talking a talk, but we're actually walking that talk. So that's my statement. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Any final discussion? Councilmember Dennis?
Okay. I agree that we need to focus on the environment, and however, we need homes, and so this is following the UDC. I know we've increased the tree requirement, and I guess I'm just curious. I don't know if I asked the staff on, is this following all codes and all making sure that there is the number of trees, number of protections for the environment for this particular project? I don't know if there's a staff, someone who can answer that.
Mr. Dombrowski?
I can take this one. Councilmember Dennis, yes. Obviously, as Mr. Plushcourt went through earlier, there were some extra steps based on the amount of earthwork happening on this project, all within the UDC, but additional requirements so that we can review and ensure that they're going to do the grading properly with the erosion control and the stormwater management that's needed. So we have those protections in place as we're reviewing the plans, and this is all falling within the standards, our engineering standards, our planning standards within the UDC.
I think we went through, thank you for that. I think we went through the requirements when we were voting on the UDC to protect the environment, and with a crucial need for housing in our society. I would have to support housing in all forms if it doesn't violate the environmental codes that we have hopefully are keeping accountable to for developers. So I would be in favor due to the need of housing and increased homes for people.
Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor of the motion to approve, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1 with Councilmember Kirkpatrick voting nay. All right, we're going to move on to items G2 and G3, which we will take the presentation, applicant presentation, and public hearing together, but will require two separate motions, and just confirming that item G2 requires a supermajority. There's my staff person. Yes. Supermajority for the comp plan amendment.
That's correct.
Okay. Nobody's responding. And then we will take the second motion on the annexation petition. So Desmond McGeough, you're here to introduce both of these. Go ahead when you're ready.
Yes, I am. Thank you, President Carlson. Members of the council, good evening. My name is Desmond McGeough. I'm with the Community Development Department. I'll be bringing you this application. The applicant has two applications submitted, which consists of a comprehensive plan amendment to change the land use designation of the property from low-density residential to industrial, and an annexation request seeking the incorporation of the subject property into the city of Rochester. The subject site is 9.5 acres, including the right-of-way. It's located on the west side of East River Road, immediately north of the 44th Street alignment. It's within a near-term urban expansion area within our growth management map, and the subject site is contiguous to the city of Rochester at the southeast corner of the property. Public facilities do exist to serve this site, which includes sanitary sewer, water, transportation, and water treatment plant capacity. The property owner intends to utilize this site as an office for the existing quarry off to the west of the subject site, and for cold storage. As part of the annexation application, the applicant has requested the application of a light industrial zoning district to the property. The property is currently zoned in Olmsted County as agriculture. This is consistent with their requested land use designation. Staff finds this proposed staff finds a need for the industrial land within the city and believes the property might be better suited for the industrial designation, considering some of the various uses along East River Road. Staff supports both of these requests. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of both of these applications unanimously. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And as President Carlson noted, these are two separate applications, and each one needs a motion, with the first one being the comprehensive plan amendment. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McGeough. Would the applicant or representative of the applicant like to speak? And just to clarify, is 10 minutes ample time for you for both items? Okay.
Yes. My name is Isaac Ramsey. I'm an engineer with Bolton & Mank, the engineer for the project representing the applicant. I have no further presentation. Just wanted to make it known that I'm here for any questions or clarifications. So,
great, thank you. All right, with that, I'll open the public hearing, and like the last item, I don't have anyone signed up to speak on this item. Would anybody like to speak? Come on up. Take your time. And please introduce yourself, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Nordine Soma, and I own property just to the east of this proposed project. I'm on the north side of 44th Street, or north side of 41st Street, the road that goes between Public Works and my property. I have 10.5 acres there, and I do recycling, concrete, asphalt, and I can't see where they're gonna be able to run sewer and with sewer. I can see how they'll do that, but the water and stormwater, the road is going to have to be tore up, East River Road probably, unless they directional drill it. I have, since I owned that property for 40 years, have been basically shut down twice. Once when the sewer went through, and once when the storm sewer went through. And I don't want to be shut down again. Not shut down completely, but I can't get my customers in and out. It just can't, I can't survive that way. I'm having a hard time anyway, the way it is. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, and I'd like to have a little help. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you. We'll make sure the applicant responds. All right, would anybody else like to speak? Okay, we will close the public hearing and invite the applicant back up for questions, or for, excuse me, for a rebuttal if there is one. No response from the applicant? Okay, are there questions for the applicant or for staff? Councilmember Dennis?
I would like to ask the applicant about questions that were just raised by the constituent just now about how customers can access property, what that's going to mean for access to his business, if that's possible for the applicant to address those concerns.
I guess point of order is, how relevant is this to the actual comp plan amendment request before us?
Well, it's relevant to the resident who asked the question, so it's relevant to me, and I would like some answers for that, please.
Does the applicant have a response?
Yes, I'm happy to answer that. The reason I hesitated at first is because the site development plan for the actual project has not been completed yet, so there's still some things being finalized. But what we do know from conversations with Rochester Public Utilities and the city engineer, that the utilities that will serve the site will be extended along East River Road on the east side, I believe, both the sanitary sewer and water main. I don't know the specifics of the staging of the construction, but I would imagine that access to nearby businesses could be allowed to be open, or provided, I guess, so they could stay open during construction, so. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there other questions?
I guess I'd like to hear from staff, please. What is in the project management plan for allowing for businesses to stay open? Is an alternate route in and out that can accept the size and weight of vehicles that need to enter and exit this site, the recycling site to the east, just north of?
Point of order, we're not there yet in the process. We're at the comp plan amendment and then annexation, and we're not to a site development plan yet that would have more details. So I'm not sure what
So-
we're asking. Go ahead, Mr.
So
Dombrowski.
what I'm asking is that something that would be happening to allow for a business to stay open when you get there? Is that something that is normally done?
Yes, Mayor, President, members of the council, that's a good question. And I realize we're not necessarily here to talk about what their site plan looks like and their utility and roadway connection to East River Road. However, knowing that they will have to do that work, we've begun some preliminary planning with RPU, with the water team, just to look at if they were to construct the water main, how they can get it there today without tearing up East River Road. So we're actually going to have it constructed outside of the current roadway. They will need to coordinate with the driveway access to Mr. Soma's property at that time. And those are all things we would do on any public project and we require of any of our private contractors as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that going out there so that Mr. Soma can hear that that's sort of what the goal is. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that. Anything else?
I'd like to make the motion on G2 first, to adopt the resolution approving the comprehensive plan amendment CD 2024-001 CPA by Rochester Sand and Gravel to change the land use designation of 9.5 acres from low-density residential to industrial, located northwest of the intersection of East River Road Northeast and 44th Street Northeast.
Second.
Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
Yeah, just to point out, this is when we're doing legislative things, and it is usually way too early to be making these sort of land use decisions, but I think it is still good to get it into the public realm and make sure they're known issues.
Thank you, Mr. Keen. Other comments?
And this is light industrial, correct? It won't change from above. Light industrial?
Well,
The council member Kirkpatrick, yes, the current zoning on that is agriculture in Olmsted County. As part of the annexation application, they did request for the IL, light industrial zoning district, consistent with their land use request.
Thank you.
other questions? Councilmember Dennis?
Okay, just more of a comment. I guess this is, I think it is important to put things on the record because when staff and applicants speak on these council meetings, they hopefully are recorded. This is being, the technology is working here, and having that recorded gives accountability to the city and the developer to make sure that things are followed. So I do think that questions and concerns should be addressed publicly. I did want to make a note, and this has been brought up before, probably years ago, but just want to make sure that it's noted that a lot of concerns I've had with the roads, when you look at that, the pavement of the road, there, I'm not, it's not my forte to know the exact calling of it, but when sand and gravel, different entities have using big trucks on public roads, often leaves that tar film that's on the road. If you're driving around, you can see that during around the construction sites, which actually reduces, to my knowledge, the traction of roads during winter when people are stopping, if it's wet or whatnot. There's this, you can see the, I don't know what we call it, tar, the black tire marks. And so I just wanted to point that out, that when more construction's being looked at for roads that are used around stoplights or whatnot, to just keep that into a factor, that to prevent crashes and stuff, to see if, I know there was talk about having wheels cleaned and stuff when entering the public roads, I think is important so that we can keep those safe. So thank you.
Ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, moving on to a motion for G3, the annexation petition by Rochester Sand and Gravel, Inc.
I'll make a motion approving annexation by ordinance number CD 2024-003 ANX by Rochester Sand and Gravel Incorporated to incorporate 9.5 acre site and designate the property as light industrial located northwest of the intersection of East River Road Northeast and 44th Street Northeast, and directing the city attorney to prepare an ordinance for first reading.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Palmer, you have the floor.
Nothing more.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, thank you. Okay, we are moving on to our reports and recommendations, and the first item we have on the agenda is the development support for Sherman Associates Development LLC for a mixed income housing project for the Civic Center North Lot. And I will turn it over to Josh Johnson to introduce this item.
Yeah, thank you, Council President, Mayor, Council members. Josh Johnson, Strategic Initiatives Director, here to request authorization to negotiate development incentives with Sherman Associates LLC. So I think it's appropriate to start, I feel like, where I've left off the last couple times I've been in front of council. So we had our housing incentives discussion at a study session. Last week we had our last council meeting, we had our TIF policy renewal. And I think all of these showcase the need to prioritize support of housing of all types. So here with a request to support mixed income housing development. The latest Maxfield study indicates that we need around 15,000 housing units just in the city of Rochester boundaries alone, and then 4,000 housing units in the downtown core. In order to do that, we did a couple incentives to accelerate housing and to incentivize the housing market to develop more housing units. One of those initiatives was to go through a land disposition process where we looked at all of the city land or all the land that was owned by the city and then rank it in terms of priority. The Civic Center North site that we're talking about tonight was listed as a high priority for that process. So to go out for development in 2001, the city council advised the city to issue an RFP for development of the Civic Center North lot. A couple of the three objectives that were in that RFP were, we invited developers to submit proposals for an affordable mixed income housing development. The site should include affordable opportunities through mixed income housing and proximity to transit. And then redevelopment should consider positioning the site for connection to the proposed district energy system. I'd say that this current proposal checks all of those boxes. So just some comparison, when we received the RFP in November of 2021, the original RFP included 209 market rate units and 80 affordable units. The current proposal includes 243 market rate units, so an increase of about 34 units, and then 76 affordable housing units. Construction costs did go from $102 million at the time of the original proposal up to $129 million, which is about a $27 million increase from 2021, November of 2021. Those are obviously due to labor shortages, material costs, and rising interest rates. Some of the key features and project benefits, one, it's a mixed income housing. I'd say the design is really well thought out. The structured parking is actually located in the center of the building, similarly to what we're trying to do with West Transit Village with wrapping the parking deck to create that urban neighborhood environment. The affordable units are really well incorporated into the development itself, so it looks like one project rather than a market rate project and an affordable project. It also offers, affordable housing within close proximity to downtown. It's got connection to the trail system, and all those amenities, close connection to Civic Center, all the events that happen there. A couple of the other benefits are obviously increased future tax base. It is going to be meeting a lot of sustainability goals by connection to the thermal energy network, and that's part of the request is, $3 million in DMC GSIA to support the additional cost hook up to that thermal energy system, as well as public realm improvements to really integrate the riverfront to the development. There's, of course, going to be targeted business requirements. It'll have, also the shared benefit of creating housing in an area that has had a lack of investment in terms of entertainment options, retail, food. I think there's a synergy there with the Civic Center. By creating more housing units, it's going to create more demand for some of that development that would also work well with visitors coming to the Civic Center that are looking for stuff to do outside and around the Civic Center itself. The last thing I'll mention is, we're in a space right now where affordable housing's difficult to do without some of the tax increment that we can generate from market rate housing. So right now, there's about a $5 million gap on the affordable housing itself. If we were to just look at that as a standalone project, it only generates about $324,000 in tax increment, which would be very difficult to close that $5 million gap. And reason for that being is affordable housing does have a lower tax rate, which is good for long-term operating costs, but it doesn't generate much in taxes, therefore doesn't generate much in income. So we sort of need the co-benefit of market rate housing that we can take some of the increment off to provide support for the affordable housing, and that's a similar case in this project. The most recent makeup is we're looking at 30, 50, and 60% affordable housing units. We're still in the details of that, but Sherman team's looking to file their MHFA application, Minnesota Housing Finance Agency application in July, and then potentially again in January to help reduce some of those affordable housing costs. I'll leave it there. I will acknowledge that the Sherman team is here in attendance, so if there's any questions for them, they'd be happy to answer any. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Are there questions for staff? Councilmember Keen?
Yeah, I just, again, when you explain TIF, it's my understanding these are being approved under the DMC TIF rules, not the city's TIF rules?
Yeah, so it would need to be a DMC district
Yep.
There's not, we can't meet the blight test because it's currently a service parking lot, so there's no,
Yep.
buildings on the site.
Okay, but I do want to point out or just get into the thing. It's my understanding that this is a studied gap that, but for, without this TIF funding, the project can't go forward. And we've had Baker Tilly do work that comes back to us that says, yes, the gap is real.
They analyze the construction cost per unit, they analyze the developer yield that the developer's trying to achieve, and they've acknowledged that they're all well within, the current market reasonableness.
Okay, and can you just reinforce again what the $3 million of Destination Medical Center general state infrastructure aid is going towards?
Yeah, so this was also approved at the last DMCC board meeting. So in their approval, it was for the district, it took up to the district energy system. So it's the delta that's required to the over and the above a typical heating and cooling system. So we did that analysis. Well, Sherman did that analysis, provided to us. We reviewed it. It was in line. And then also funding for the enhanced riverfront improvements to create sort of a public space in between the development and the riverfront to connect to that trail system.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Wall.
Mr. Johnson, you referenced the latest Maxwell study indicating a need for 15,000 units with 4,000 downtown. Is that study still through 2030, or what's the date?
Yeah, I apologize if I didn't acknowledge that. This is through 2030.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Palmer.
Thank you. I've got quite a few questions. So, when we first had this project come out, I think you said November 21st, in the RFP, we had market rate at 209, it's now up to 243, but we lost our affordable units from 80 down to 76. So that's troubling to me. Is there a reason that we would allow that?
Councilmember Palmer, I don't know off the top of my head. When we're looking at the different rental makeups and potentially going to affordable housing, I don't know if that changed some of the square footage of the units, which changed the unit count. I couldn't answer for certain.
Well, that's quite a bit of an increase on the market rate and a decrease on the affordable, and that's why we're giving TIF is for affordable. So is there a developer fee going to be involved in this project?
Yeah, there typically is a developer fee. We haven't talked about, what the developer fee might be, and I'd also, I should have acknowledged this during my presentation, but this request is really to be, not begin negotiations, but go into negotiations more in earnest. This just sets the parameters. So all like developer fees will go into the development assistance agreement, the term sheet, all those things, which are really the next steps in the process.
Well, I would assume, we've had other developers with zero fee who applied, so I would assume it'd be zero. The other questions I have is it's unclear to me that positive that we're going to have affordable units built on this project. And I believe, if you've said this in the past, is that Minnesota Housing, they're waiting for that application. If they don't get approved, which they didn't last year, is the affordable off the table?
I would not conclude that it's off the table. They have been committed. Of course, it's been verbally. We're going to get it committed in writing once we get through a development assistance agreement. Of course, they just are doing their due diligence to ensure that they can reduce that gap to make that affordable housing pencil out.
Well, part of my problem is how do I guarantee I'm getting an affordable units? Because somebody can build the market rate, and to my knowledge, we've never given TIF to market rate units. Is that correct?
We did give TIF to the Berkman, which had market rate units. But I do understand your concern, Councilmember Palmer. And that's where, when we are getting creative with the development assistance agreement, we'll work with our TIF attorney through that process to ensure that we're providing ourselves, making ourselves comfortable with the language as we, provide the land. They'll have to plat the land anyway, so there's going to be an affordable portion of the land that we can retain until such time that, it's been approved. I mean, there's different ways to go about it.
So the county has the land valued at $4 million, and that's not in this part of the agreement yet?
Yeah, so the land write-down, and that was actually also written in the RFP as a potential development assistance to the respondents. It does get put into the equation of what we're providing in assistance, but it wasn't part of the request for what are we comfortable with providing in TIF and what are we comfortable with providing with DMC GSIA funds.
So you were talking about making the area more lively. We've got 2 buildings that were built on the east side of the river, apartment buildings, which didn't have any TIF, if I remember correctly. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
And then we've got the old YMCA site down on First Avenue, 701 First Avenue, and they bought their lot and they tore the building down, and they don't have any TIF, do they?
They do not.
So I have a real hard problem with us doing anything to do with market rate with TIF, but we're here asking questions. And so some other questions I have is Minnesota money, I mean, our agreement right now is for August 1st and it expires, is that correct?
It's in August. I'd have to double check the date, but in August, yes.
Okay, so are you thinking we won't get an agreement by August 1st, or will we get an agreement by August 1st?
We, post this council meeting, we're going to start working, we've been working on term sheets. So the goal would be to get a development assistance agreement as soon as we can through August. And I also want to note that the other projects that you mentioned, those are a different construction type. So this is a 13-unit, mid-rise steel, concrete. So there's as you know, there's a cost to providing more dense, higher story housing. So there would be a difference between comparing this project to the YMCA site or City Walk, which is over by Mayo Field.
But if I remember correctly, the YMCA site was a 9, if not 12-story building.
I think it was 6/1. So I think it's wood frame construction over a concrete pedestal, but I'd look at my planning team to correct that.
Okay. You can do an agreement that says we want to have affordable housing on this site. And I go back to ramp 6, where the city council said that we wanted affordable housing above the ramp. That fell through because we didn't have a well-written agreement, I'm assuming. Is that the assumption?
Sorry, Mr. Council Member, which project?
Ramp 6?
Yeah, ramp 6 had its own set of extenuating circumstances beyond the development agreement for the reason why we couldn't support housing on it.
So I guess, I mean, for me, I would like to have by August 1st an ironclad, yes, we're bringing affordable units to Rochester. And I would think we'd want to go back up to at least the 80 units that we had in the RFP. Is that a doable situation?
It's a request we could make. To get an ironclad development assistance agreement by August could be tight, especially knowing that when they're likely going to hear back from their first round of MHFA funding in December-ish timeframe.
But they had that funding last year, they asked.
Yep, they did submit a proposal. We worked with the team to review the proposal against the criteria that gets graded by the MHFA to put forth, the best proposal or the most successful proposal this time around.
And so my understanding is there's about 5 proposals out of Rochester going to the Minnesota Housing. Is that about what you're thinking?
Somewhere in that range, yeah.
And how many do we typically get in a year?
I'd look at community
About
development team if they can help.
2 last year,
We received 2 last year.
and then one of them was with the county. Correct?
That is correct.
Well, we'll see if there's other questions. Thanks.
Any other questions? Councilmember Keen?
I'd like to move the motion authorizing negotiation of development support for Sherman Associates LLC up to $13 million in TIF assistance and $3 million in DMC general state infrastructure aid for a mixed income housing project on the Civic Center North Lot.
Just a point of order, that's not a question.
No one else had questions. You can still ask questions. This isn't a public hearing. You can still ask questions of staff after there's been a motion.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Keen, you have the floor, and then Councilmember Dennis, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I spent some time with staff on this last week and also with Sherman and Associates. I think Councilmember Palmer brings up some good points, and there are some, like looking at the amount of assistance on this is daunting. It's more than what we're have been doing in some of our other projects. But going back to the idea that we go about to Baker Tilly and say, let's do the financial validation that this is a but-for, that this is a gap, that without this, the project will not go forward. I think we have to be careful that we're not to the point of saying like we want to pay more than what we should be in offering on these, and I think that's what Councilmember Palmer's watching out for. But when I look at what the kind of the quality of this project would be and the location and what it would do for the east, that idea of moving some of the housing to the east side of downtown, I think this is an important project, and I want to support it tonight.
Councilmember Dennis, you had some questions for staff. Go ahead.
Yes, and I have a couple questions for the applicant. I would like just to ask the applicant about prevailing wage, also whether or not the square footage is going to change to impact accessibility in these units, and also is it possible to keep the amount of affordable housing. I appreciate Councilmember Palmer noting that not all questions were asked, so I appreciate that I can ask questions of the applicants during this time. So
Well,
would that be possible? Thank you.
technically, we need a motion to suspend the rules to allow the applicant to speak, since this is not a public hearing. There is technically not an applicant for this item. So I'm totally open to that if others are.
Well,
Councilmember Palmer?
all of our DMC projects have prevailing wage in them. So if that's your number one question, we have to have that for DMC.
Great, and then also the accessibility question, I know I've talked to the developer, applicant, I appreciate reaching out to myself and all the council members one-on-one to ask questions, but just wanted to get on record about the accessibility of all your units. And the price increase, I believe, is an issue when it comes to having less affordable housing. We're costing more. This is something that I think is a real issue for citizens. The last council meeting, May 20th, I was unmeritedly banished and did not hear any of the TIF policy updates, so I would also like maybe a little more update about this, because I would be a little bit more informed on what I had missed during that banishment. But for this specific question, I would like the applicant to, just for record, acknowledge the accessibility of all of the units, please.
And we'll have Ms. Steinhauser weigh in.
Yes, thank you, Council President Carlson. Our requirements, we cannot require anything beyond what is required in the code, and the code does have accessibility components to it. So we cannot require beyond what the code spells out, and that is a state building code. I also do want to clarify, we did get some information, the two apartment buildings east of the river do have TIF associated with them, and they are market rate. The Maven is also another market rate project that had TIF associated with it. So just wanted to clarify other examples. Thank you.
Okay. Will this be impacting property tax at all, the change in, numbers from what was originally to now what is being proposed? Is that going to impact residents in their property or any form of their taxation?
No, Councilmember Dennis. So because it's tax increment financing, we actually freeze the current property taxes at their current rate. So the city wouldn't receive any less in taxes. We would just be capturing the net increase in the taxable market value once the new development is created. So we're just capturing the additional increment.
And if I could just add to that, then once the increment has been realized, the property does come back 100% to the tax roll, so there is a benefit to the taxpayers.
And just to clarify, because I was a little bit what Councilmember Palmer had mentioned about guarantees, there is no way of guaranteeing affordable housing with this. We're voting before all the numbers have been calculated, or is there I requested ahead of time some of the numbers of for family. This is what was given to me when I requested the AMI. For family of four, 35,000. So if you think of a family of four for 35,000, I would like to know how many units would be in that kind of a price range for affordability. Because when we talk about affordability, we need true affordability. We've talked about, people can't live here in a studio that costs, outrageous amounts of money. So can someone address that? How many units can a family of four who makes 35,000 with that calculation afford in this apartment complex?
Mr. Johnson, was it my understanding that the final numbers of 30%, 50, and 60 are still being determined? How many units of each?
Yeah, they are. So the number of affordable units is 76 currently. So we've got around 13 units at the 30% AMI, 38 at 50%, and then 25 at 60%. So that's sort of the current breakdown of each of the AMI rates. I'd also note to your other question, Councilmember Dennis, we're going to be coming back again. So approving up to 13 million, approving up to 3 million, there's still multiple phases in the process. We'll have to come back with a development assistance agreement and actually what we're willing to provide and support. This is just sort of putting a cap on what we're willing to negotiate.
All right, are you done with your questions and comments, Council?
I got questions.
My questions, but not my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Kirkpatrick?
Thank you. I'd like to pass to Councilmember Wall if he's next on the list, please, or whoever's next on the
Councilmember
list.
Palmer's next.
Okay, great.
And then
Pass to
Wall?
Councilmember, and then come back, please.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, Ms. Steinhauser, what was the TIF that we gave for those 2 units, and what did we give for the brick?
I don't have those numbers, I just have information that those were TIF incentivized projects that are market rate, so we can get those information.
So they don't have any affordable units in those?
The information I have is the 2 apartment buildings are TIF and are market rate.
Okay.
East of the river and Maven is TIF, market rate.
Well, Maven is on Broadway, and there's 2 units on the east side of the river. I don't know the names.
Yep, the 2 apartment buildings east of the river have TIF, received TIF and are market rate. We can get you the additional information, but I don't have that exact number.
Is that DMC TIF? Are they in the DMC district?
No.
I don't believe so, that's not in the
Yes,
DMC.
yes, they are,
Is it-
and that would be Riverwalk, and that would be the Lofts at Mayo Park.
Those are across the river from DMC.
No, DMC goes to 6th Avenue Southeast, 4th Street Southeast, and then it encompasses Mayo Field, I believe.
I'd have to confirm, I don't believe so.
I don't believe they were done under the DMC authority, with the potential exception of the Maven.
Right, they might have been
So there's a
done
minor difference, but within the district.
They might have been done before the district was moved to the east. Yeah.
And just for your benefit, I believe the residents of Discovery Square also had a strong market rate component to it as well.
I'll just confirm, Riverwalk, according to our maps, Riverwalk is not in the district. Mayo Field is, but it cuts around Riverwalk. It's just
thank you.
outside.
And then Lofts at Mayo Park.
Lofts at Mayo Park is in the district.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Okay, Councilmember Wall?
For what it's worth, I think the Berkman got 12 million. I don't want to speak for staff, plus or minus, that's what I recall.
How many units was that?
Oh,
360.
Yes. Yep, let's rein ourselves back in. Councilmember Wall has the floor.
Unless I misread the proposal, the affordable units are senior housing, is that correct?
That is the current proposal, yep.
Okay, so that could change, is what you're saying?
It could. I mean, it's a need that we've identified, Maxfield Studies identified. It also seems to score real well with the MHFA process.
Councilmember Palmer or Kirkpatrick, did you have anything else? Kirkpatrick?
Yes, I'd like to take my time now, thank you. I really appreciate your questions, Councilmember Palmer, because they are really relevant, and that is actually about the only thing that bothers me about this development. I am super jazzed about this development because I have been pushing since I've sat on the council for this exact densification, infill type of structures. This is phenomenal. We need to do more of this. I think they were PUDs, Mr. Yetzer, Central Towers, Park Towers, and Fontaine, something that we do not do anymore. Those types of buildings pack a lot of people in densely in an area that has all kinds of services. You do not need a vehicle. It's just phenomenal. I can't speak highly enough about the design concepts of this, the location of it, but I do have a real issue with the fact that we're not doing the affordable component at the same time. And I'd like to see some sort of philanthropy come forward This location is usurping, I believe, over 250 parking spaces that supply those service workers that work downtown. Our hospitality industry that supports our patients and our visitors that come here for the Mayo Clinic. And I don't know if there is a way to somehow incentivize more funding to go to this so that we can get the affordable done at the same time, but that's really a key component to this. I think doing them both at the same time is really key, but I appreciate Sherman and Associates, what they're doing here. I think it's great, and I really want to see more things like this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kirkpatrick. I think both you and Councilmember Palmer had some really good points. I have been so pleased to support this project and really appreciate all the work staff have done, DMC, Sherman's team, to come together to figure out how to braid these funds, hopefully with Minnesota Housing support to make projects like this work. I understand the two projects fitting together to make financial sense is difficult on the part of the developer, and it's difficult on our part because one part isn't guaranteed. Yet we need more housing. People living downtown spend more downtown. So regardless of I absolutely support the affordable housing project coming in, but regardless, we need units downtown to support our downtown and keep our downtown vital and operating. So I'm really excited about this. It taps into our district energy to support our sustainability goals. It's hopefully having affordable housing, likely senior housing that could potentially free up some of our other existing housing stock for other families to move into throughout the community. And it really is, from my perspective, an opportunity to stimulate the redevelopment along the downtown riverfront corridor, which we've invested so much in developing plans around these last few years. This is one of the first real projects that is hopefully going to get started and come to completion here in the next few years. Councilmember Dennis?
Okay, thank you. I echo a lot of that. Of course, I mean, we need to have housing. We need more housing. There's very few reasons why we could vote against housing, safety, environment. You know, there are reasons, but I don't know. I'm going to vote for this because we need housing, but I don't feel comfortable with the idea of just gradually eroding away at units that are affordable. We need to be advocates for keeping and making sure that housing is an option for people. We have a lot of people who are going to be working jobs that aren't going to be making the dollar figures that are above this. I mean, I quote a family of four making $35,000. You look at that second largest employer, the school district, right? Most people, a lot of people in the school district make that or under. It's you know, there's struggling people in all areas, and I feel that we need to make sure that they have a voice. So even though I'll vote for this because we need housing, I am not happy that this is acceptable, that we can whittle away at units. I want to make sure that all units have accessibility for all people, and you know, we do need to infiltrate and infill the areas, but that doesn't mean, you know, getting rid of quality, making sure that all of the quality of life is still being protected, and so I guess we're kind of done with questions, but these numbers are staggering of what is income levels, and what we need to do is to protect, like the speaker in our open comment talk about property taxes. We need not only protect people who are in their homes so their property taxes don't go you know, off the charts, but also make sure that people can stay here in Rochester, because we are going to have a very sad town if we don't have essential workers to meet the needs of our community.
Thank you. Councilmember Bransford.
Sorry.
Nope. Bransford, then Mayor, then Palmer, then Keene.
Okay. I just wanted to say I'm very delighted by this. It's one link in the chain. And I remember some time ago we were discussing inclusionary zoning, it's very difficult to make that a have to, but this is a really great way to make that a reality, is this kind of collaborative effort between private investors and MFHA. I think it's great. And just, I understand there's concerns about the mix of affordable units, but really like to see this process move forward. I think it's a great project, and it's almost kind of one of a kind, really. And I think it's great. Great job.
Thank you. Councilmember Bransford, Mayor.
Thank you. I too want to support this project. I appreciate the comments. Council President Carlson made many of the comments, and Representative. Oh, I gave you a promotion there for a moment. Council member, or maybe not, Bransford. I appreciate your comments, and I just want to say, for me, this has been an exciting project from the beginning. These times are very difficult for housing. There has been a lot of consternation over the last year as people tried making the numbers work and still providing us with a quality proposal that provided affordable housing units for seniors. And 76 units for seniors at 30, 50, and 60% of area median income is nothing to sneeze at. That is exciting for our downtown area, for seniors to have a walkable community where they can walk downtown and walk to the things that they want to go to in our parks is very exciting to me. And the idea that that Sherman from the very beginning has been excited and interested about the district energy, thermal energy network was a plus for me. And so I'm very excited about this project. I'm disappointed, as we all are, and I know Sherman is, that the numbers, with the current place that we're at with construction costs and pay and supplies, has not gone in the direction maybe we wanted. They're not the only one that's been struggling with that, but they are one of the ones that has said, we're going to move ahead with this. We want it for this community, and we'll work with you. And so I've appreciated that. I'm excited about this, and I can hardly wait for it to get going.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Palmer?
Well, I'm excited also for it, and $13 million in tax increment financing is a large number, but I think it's a fair number if we get the affordable units in the senior units. And so the next step here is for a development agreement to say, yes, we're comfortable with that. The development agreement is going to come back to us. But for me to be comfortable with the development agreement, it's going to have the senior units, the units that we're looking at. The south lots coming up, that we could also put some units on that. We have to be fair on how we're doing our items. But I'm just going to say I'm excited for it to do it if we're doing the affordable units with the senior housing. I will point out, though, that the geothermal, and this was odd to me, cost $3 million, and that's why they got the DMC dollars. I thought our geothermal was going to save us money in the long run. Again, the next step on this is the development agreement, and I'm assuming that everybody here is going to want to see the senior units involved in that development agreement in an ironclad statement.
Thank you, Councilmember Palmer. Councilmember Keen, you want to wrap us up?
Again, just the whole discussion. Again, we're actually making a motion tonight to authorize up to a certain sort of thing, and I think that's important to let the process go forward. We've had this discussion on mix of housing and what can be done in this market, and we have to always remember that we don't build housing. We, the public sector, try to create these incentives, and we're dependent on groups like Sherman to say this is what can or cannot be done, and then we look at these gaps and say, can we close those through tools like TIF? I guess I want to bring up, because we talked about 13 million, but let's put it on the table here. We also are giving them this property, city property. There's other things going on here, but what it comes down to is this is what it takes right now in this market to get housing built. And with our other growth things going on in our community, I think it's important that we get behind this. And again, this idea that they're going to build the other ones and not build the affordable and then take our money, that's just whimsical thinking. That's just not going to happen.
I guess I would just, final comment, we approve quickly the consent agenda items, but there are some important items on there related to housing that we are not the only ones contributing to. We have our partners across our community, the county, and through our housing coalition that are also contributing to make these projects happen. So the city is not standing up these projects alone. So not related just to this one, but many other projects that we're trying to move forward. So, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Why don't we take a 10-minute break, reconvene at 7:35? Before we get into the story. That's right.
I don't blame you. I would go now. Mr. Wall, your name tag is skipped over.
Oh, yeah.
Such is life.
Uh-huh.
There we go, shake it.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So we are, this is where the agenda reconfiguration's a little confusing, but we are now taking F5, which is the Historic District Destination Medical Center funding, and that's been pulled by Councilmember Dennis. So I just ask her to say a few words or ask her questions, and then we will move on to motions and discussion. Go ahead.
All right, so I first want to just address the rearranging of our council agenda. I think maybe in the future, it might be nice to have the consent agenda item at a meeting prior to the meeting that we're discussing the reports and recommendations, because it's hard to propose motions. I'm going to be proposing for this when we have H2 following, and it puts a lot of pressure on not being open to options and more likely just to rubber stamp what's on the consent agenda. So I would appreciate in the future perhaps looking at the makeup so we don't have to do this, juggling and potentially influencing a policy. So to address F5, I pulled that because, we're looking at historic districts, which I'm a huge support of. I've shared my lived experience in the past. I feel like if we really do want to, if we claim we are a destination downtown, not just an event downtown, but a destination, to have this kind of feel of the charm, the ambiance, the walking in and feeling the history and bringing yourself back to the power of what it was like, when the founders of this town came in, and preserving that is so important, because it takes one wrecking ball to destroy it for 1,000 years, for forever, for all future generations. So we do want to preserve it. I am a big fan of this. I want to pass it. However, I don't think $5 million is enough from DMC. I feel like some of the missions, to my understanding, and please correct me if I am wrong, of DMC is to allow patients and visitors and people to have somewhere and something to do when they are not in their appointments, and to walk around and to experience. This is the mission one of the missions of DMC is to support historical buildings. And I think that 5 million, which sounds like a lot, which of course, when you're, individuals, it sounds like a lot. But when you're talking about 5 billion, which is hard to wrap our minds around, we're looking at this as an investment, I think, which would benefit Mayo Clinic. It would benefit, DMC for their
Point of
mission.
order, should we put a motion on the table?
I motion to move to postpone this to the next council meeting so that DMC we can evaluate if we can get more funding.
So point of order, the appropriate form of that motion would be motion to continue to date certain, whatever
okay.
the.
Thank you for the wording.
is.
Yeah, the wording is important, as I found out in the last meeting. So I apologize for my wording. Move to continue to a date certain. I didn't grab my calendar, but the next meeting here in May, which would be
17.
Thank you.
June 17th.
June 17th. Thank you.
Okay.
Back in May. June.
Hold for 1 second, and is there a second? Okay. Is there another motion?
I'd like to move to approve the Destination Medical Center financial support for up to $5 million for eligible capital improvements to prospectives with properties within the historic district.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
I appreciate the way DMC set this up. They didn't do this as maybe now you'll like the district better, but the owners are seeing some potential value, and I'm glad to see that and support it.
Yeah, I am, this last DMC meeting was, I think, the best ever. We had so many projects that were really exciting to support, and this is one of them. DMC staff and our staff have done such a thoughtful job of meeting with downtown building owners and business owners in this historic district to talk about what sort of supports, financial and otherwise, are appropriate, which we did have a study session on. The financial package was just one part of that, but the broader piece around partnership, or that requires partnership with DMC and RDA and our other partners downtown to really make this historic district, which does, you know, tell the story of part of our community a reality, is just fabulous. And I'm really excited to support this and then have a conversation about how additional incentives from the city can really bolster this area. Councilmember Palmer.
Well, thank you. I didn't vote for the district, but I appreciate DMC doing this. I thought DMC, watched their presentation on this at their meeting. It was, I think, phenomenally great to listen to it. People spoke that they were listened to, which I thought was phenomenal. You know, $5 million is a lot of money, but the other side of this is, and I think we always forget that we have $10 million from DMC to make Soldiers Field better. And if anybody's been into the pool, you can see how that's paid off already, and I think everybody's excited to see that pool finish. But I appreciate the $5 million. I appreciated that the way it was set up and the thoughtfulness and the going out in the community and listening to people is admirable that they did that.
Councilmember Wall.
With Councilmember Palmer, I didn't support the historic district because I was worried that we were buying a car and didn't know the cost. But tonight, I think that we are finding out more what that cost will be, both with F5 and with H2. Now I think it's probably become H3, and I think we can be supportive of that.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. Yeah, echoing what everybody else has said. The value of DMC for the community may not be demonstrated as much as they had hoped in the beginning, but I think this is a great step forward, and I think them really requiring us to put a vote forward to preserve this, you know, buying the car without knowing the cost, they've put their money where their mouth is, and I very much appreciate that. There were some comments made during open comment that I'm wondering if, you know, Councilmember Keen, you did move to approve this as is. Approve this as is, yes, that's correct. But is there a way to make sure that the HPC does have a say in, or not a say, but a reviewal process with this, since
Just
they are the
Point of order, I think that was related to the city's streetscaping design, which is the next item.
That's the next one, yes, thank you. Okay, I appreciate that. And then, so the loan reimbursement program would be that as well. Awesome. Great deal.
Councilmember Dennis.
Well, just to, and I probably should have started out with this, it is a very blessing to have DMC invest money in their downtown. So I don't want to not emphasize how fortunate we are to have DMC here. I also know the amount that downtown, people who are part of Mayo Clinic utilize downtown, the services that are used by the city downtown because of Mayo Clinic. All of this, I think, needs to be taken into account when looking at how much is invested in preserving. We had the vote on Lourdes High School. We've had the vote on different things that I think we need to really preserve as much as we can, and the growth that's going to happen. It's easy to knock down buildings, not preserve, not to justify. Keeping that history, because the call of money, the call of growth, the call of advancements, of saving lives, I mean, things are going to really be pressing on historical districts that don't have a voice. I mean, you can't, when you talk about, we need to be advocates for the future generations. I think that this is an opportunity where we could really put our checkbook or the DMC or people, to invest in really making this a destination downtown, because I know when I go back to my childhood home and go to Deadwood, South Dakota area, and go to Rapid City and go downtown in the small towns, you walk in and it's just, you feel the history and you're tied to it, and we're starting to lose that here in Rochester. which is very saddening. So I was just hoping to postpone this and see if we could see about upping that, but I am obviously in support of any money, and I appreciate the Mayo Clinic DMC for their contribution in helping preserve. I just hope that it will go on in the future for future councils to make sure that history continues to be protected. Thank you.
Councilmember Wall.
I inquired earlier today what the appropriate role of the Historic Preservation Commission would be, both in terms of F5 and now H3, and got a helpful response. Could staff repeat that for the public so that we know that HPC really will weigh in on the process as appropriate?
Ms. Woodward?
Thank you, Councilman Wall. The HPC will be participating in the process, and I'll probably touch a little bit more on the public realm streetscape plan under the next item. But with any of these proposals, if there's any project that's having substantial renovations to it, there's a potential it'll need to go before the Heritage Preservation Commission for approval. You previously had within the UDC, the historic ordinance was incorporated into the UDC, and as part of that, there's also design guidelines that have been established. So any project within the historic district will need to follow both of those. There are certain instances where there can be teammate level approval, and that's part of the regulatory process that we really outlined to be able to streamline that as part of the historic preservation plan and updates. So there will be some items that can be done at a teammate level, but there will be other items depending on the level of renovation potentially to a property that will need to go before the Heritage Preservation Commission for approval.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bransford, then Palmer.
I'm very proud to have championed this. You know, I'm a short timer, but one of the things that I will take away when I step down as a council person is helping preserve downtown. And no process is perfect. I understand there was some concerns about not knowing what you were buying, and I had faith in the process. You can look at me sideways, I guess, if you want to, but I really appreciate how all of the stakeholders really stepped up. It's not perfect, but I'm really delighted.
Councilmember Palmer.
Well, thank you. I just want to point out from an historic perspective that Mailwood was out there for 65 years trying to get fixed, and the Mayo Clinic stepped up and fixed it. If you've ever been in the Plummer building, that they've remodeled the Plummer building to just an unbelievable asset. If you go to CC Heights, Mayo Clinic has stepped up and made a CC Heights be able to function and be a better building for everybody in Rochester. The Foundation House is an asset to our community that Mayo Clinic takes care of. And St. Mary's, you can't walk by St. Mary's and not feel the historic presence of it. So I just want to make clear that we do have the largest employer in the state of Minnesota who takes historic preservation to heart, and they put their money where their mouth is. And you just have to go to Mailwood to see how just absolutely gorgeous that building is. And I was a tour guide there in 1976 and 77. I can tell you it's a lot better today than it's ever been. So I just want to make those comments.
All right, I think we're ready to vote. Mayor, did you want to add anything? Okay. All right, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, so now we will move on to the Downtown Commercial Historic District incentives from the city's perspective, which is H3, and I will turn it over to Irene Woodward to introduce. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council President, Mayor, members of Council. Before you as a requested action is to approve the Heritage Preservation Incentives Package for the Downtown Commercial Historic District. When the Historic District was approved in January 22nd of this year, there was a recommendation to bring back some financial assistance programs. When we had a lot of discussions, we had talked about regulatory, public realm, and financial incentives. And what we're proposing today is both the public realm and financial incentives. Throughout the process, we've been also working with DMC, as you just recently approved some other funding, and really focusing on 8 focus areas within the district were identified, including business navigation, financial, regulatory, recruitment, retention, public realm, mobility, programming and activation, branding and marketing. In some of these spaces, there are opportunities for the city to lead, and there's other opportunities for really to co-lead or execute through partner agreements. So really where we, I think, function well within the city is in the regulatory, public realm, and financial incentive space, in partnership with others as well. So when we really looked at regulatory, and there isn't anything necessarily being proposed tonight, but that's removal of barriers and some of that reference to the UDC process and the design guidelines and how to make that process smoother for applicants and easing that timeliness. When we really started to look at public realm, this is where investment in the planning, infrastructure, and placemaking, and the recommendation before you tonight is to fund and look for a streetscape study for the district, which we're also calling the public realm visioning. And this is really an opportunity to establish a vision for the district, to separate and identify what does this space look like from the different spaces in the downtown area, and really get a vision from both the business owners and the residents, and through an extensive engagement process that would also include the Heritage Preservation Commission. Where do we see this area growing? What does it look like in terms of what's that vision? What are the materials that are going to make sense within the historic district? And then how do we identify future projects that could be incorporated into the CIP, both on the DMC side and potentially on the city side? So really that first step is that plan, that planning document to really get everyone together and create that vision to move that forward. And then what we're also looking at in terms of financial incentives, and these are ones that we had previously talked about before council during the study session and also at that January 22nd meeting, was establishing a pilot revolving loan fund of up to $1 million utilizing economic vitality. We set it out as kind of a pilot 5-year program, which also mimics the DMC funding as well. And it is up to $200,000 per eligible property of up to 10 years for the term. And we also included that it can be a match for DMC funding, and that up to $20,000 per new upper story housing residential units, if they're created, can be forgiven from that loan. So we're also looking to encourage additional upper story housing. So we want to see that not necessarily on the ground floor, we want to see that activated, but any additional residential units, we're kind of mimicking to be able to reduce that loan amount by $20,000. Our third kind of financial incentive is really looking at establishing a pre-renovations grant for soft costs. We recognize with some of these historic properties, there's a higher level of design that is needed and additional resources. And so we want to be able to support that by providing a 50% match and up to $20,000 per project. And this would really help support, potentially architectural design, feasibility studies, design work, or any other like engineering type work that may be necessary to be able to support that property owner. And for funding of this, we're looking for up to $125,000 annually from Economic Vitality. I just want to note that we are working closely with DMC funding. So one of our next steps, if approved tonight, is to really look at both identifying the application process and the process that this will go through, so that we're trying to streamline this process, because that's a lot of the feedback we heard was how do we make this an easy process, looking at a consolidated application, identifying the kind of process that applicants would need to go through, including when they might need to go to the Heritage Preservation Commission for approval, what's necessary in terms of the timeline with that, as well as building out a communications plan to be able to make sure that we can communicate with property owners and businesses about available resources and where they can find those resources, both on potentially the city's website and DMC, and how we coordinate our messaging to make sure that we're consistent with the goal of being able to kick off the program by July 1st. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but this is kind of where I think very consistent with where we laid out before under the previous discussions about financial incentives from the city.
Thank you so much, Ms. Woodward. Questions, Councilmember Keen?
Yeah, I just want to start out and make sure, because when you started off reading off some of the other things, public realm, obviously important, regulatory, but you also mentioned in there that idea of mobility and navigation. And I do think those are things that are more like city responsibilities. But I'm concerned here that they're going to focus this on historic district and not on the full downtown, or the idea of we had talking before about how we find parking and what the signage is for that. And is this different than how we do navigation in the historic district, or are they integrated somehow?
Ms. Woodward, would you just mention the DMC discussion around wayfinding as well? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can certainly also kind of address mobility as one of the opportunities I think that we're looking from on the city end is how do we kind of share out information in terms of parking availability. So it's not specific to this request because we're not asking for any specific funding, but it is certainly an area that we from the city end will play a role in identifying where there's opportunities and parking, knowing that mobility is one of those things that has been identified from business owners developers and property owners. So how do we align and make sure that we're communicating what's available? And at the same time, we're also looking at where does wayfinding come into this in terms of how do we make sure that people are aware of where those resources are and the ease to be able to access them in a much easier way.
I guess what I'm looking for is some sort of making sure the staff understands we're not just doing the historic district. This is for, you know, an entryway coming in from Civic Center. What do you see first and how do you get to it? If you're coming in on South on Broadway, what do you see? Is it that sort of full integrated thinking, or is it just the historic district?
Well, I think for part of the public realm plan, I think that is specific to the historic district, but we're certainly going to take into account the other public spaces. And how do you differentiate? So if somebody knows that they're in the historic district, and I think there's elements that we can include to make sure that that area is identified and a little bit, and I think that's some of the feedback we heard, is that how do you know you're in the historic district versus how do you know when you're in a different, like Peace Plaza? So how do we create a space that people are aware that they've entered, and there's this element of history and other pieces that we can pull together to make sure this space is identified as the historic district, and we currently really don't have that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Palmer?
Well, thank you. Scoot up here a little bit. One of my big pet peeves is when we talk about wayfinding. I think we've talked about wayfinding for 7 years and no one seems to be able to figure out how to do it. So I'm disappointed in that. If you go to a Mayo Clinic building, and I always tell everybody, if you're lost in a Mayo Clinic building, stop, look at the sign, it'll take you right where you need to go. So they figured out wayfinding. I don't know why we can't, as a city, figure this out and get it taken care of. As far as parking goes, I like my idea of friendly parking. How do we make people know that our parking is friendly and that there is available spots in going there? The other thing, and I know we didn't get our funding through our bond issue from the state, but the Riverside development is a piece of property that we own, and we need to move ahead on that, because as soon as you go down 3rd Street and walk across the street Broadway and you get to the river, it's a parking lot, and it does not represent 3rd Street. It does not represent the district at all.
Do you have a question, Councilmember Palmer?
Yeah, my question is on the sales tax, well, okay, let's go back to number 1. Why can't we do wayfinding right?
I think, go ahead, Ms. Steinhauser.
Yeah, Council President Carlson, thank you. I'm happy to jump into that conversation. So thank you, Councilmember Palmer. It is an active conversation. Wayfinding is very challenging. I've done it in a number of communities. I think there is finally enough critical mass and energy around understanding the need for wayfinding. And so our conversations have been not only about what does wayfinding look like for the historic district, what does wayfinding look like in an interim phase as people navigate, and how do we, as something changes with construction, we have to route people a different way. So what does interim wayfinding look like, and then how do we march towards a more permanent wayfinding strategy? So you are likely going to be seeing some budget recommendations coming forward to start to get us on that path towards wayfinding. It is a complex, expensive, I'll be honest, having been through it, issue, but now is the time, and I think there's enough critical mass among our partners and city teammates to be able to take that on. I would also say we are investing in some other tools to help understand how are people moving. RDA has invested in some software to help understand how people are moving, and so that can also inform the wayfinding, as does our active transportation master plan. So a lot of conversations that are progressing around that, and you will be seeing something come forward regarding a budget for wayfinding.
All right, let's
And
veer back to this item. Historic district item. You had a question about sales tax?
Sales tax, since we did the sales tax extension and I was involved with most of the meetings, why would we take money out of that for the economic vitality fund? I never heard that spoken during those meetings.
So we have identified some funding under the adaptive reuse category in terms of kind of the economic development. We kind of have 3 buckets within our local option sales tax with economic vitality. And 2 of them are really focused on different housing programs, and then there's one that's more broadly for economic development, and we've identified funding for adaptive reuse. And this would be a portion of what we've identified as for within that adaptive reuse category that we've laid out for approximately 5 years. It is a revolving loan fund, and it's an opportunity to provide this funding to support this in the downtown. And I would also say within the revolving loan fund and as a pilot program, there's opportunities to come back of what does that look like. But we have found within that category that we thought it was appropriate.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
Just forgot it. Shoot. Oh, I know. So from the revolving loan fund perspective, I know in some of our earlier conversations and some of the initial feedback we heard from downtown properties that the loan wasn't as desirable as the grants. So I'm thrilled that we're thinking about the grant program as well. So what was the staff impetus for continuing forward with the loan program?
I think the loan program is kind of where we had proposed it before as a way to continue to be able to revolve the funds and continue to be able to support projects as they move forward, which is also recognizing that there was going to be potential other matching funds through the DMC. But we were also looking at creating it with 0% interest so that there wasn't going to be that same impact, but a way to be able to support those downtown businesses and properties.
Complementary funding. Okay, and I assume through all of this, we will be assessing how things are going and potentially making course corrections along the way or recommendations for tweaks if needed.
Yes, that is the end. We anticipate being able to bring back updates and make sure any course corrections or changes that might be needed, we would bring that forward back before council for recommendations or any approvals that might be needed.
Okay, I'm going to pass it back to Councilmember Palmer, then Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
So historic preservation and I've worked with the people who've redone these buildings. So the second floor of these buildings, is that going to be a change of use then? If they go to residential?
It could be potentially a change. It would depend on what the existing use of that property is to begin with and what is being proposed overall. But it is also in a fairly, the downtown district, so it would be allowed to have upper story housing for the most.
So they would, if their stairway was installed, they're not going to make them upgrade their stairway to a new building code?
I think whatever they're proposing, it would also have to be reviewed by the building code, and I think there are different ways to look at the building code as it relates to that particular property, recognizing there are certain factors within a historic building, and that is an opportunity that we would engage with our building department in the plan review process and what would be feasible.
And so would you say that we'd have a consultant or somebody available to help them walk through that with their architect?
We generally also provide pre-development existing, so there are opportunities that we can engage our existing teammates to provide resources and offer some general advice. That's also part of the reason that we're also offering that soft cost grant, is so that if a property owner or a business needs some additional assistance to really identify what they can and can't do with their property or really flesh out a concept, there are ways that they can get some of those resources.
Perfect, thank you.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. Is there like an agreed upon fee that the design consultant for those soft costs and just the concept of, you know, looking at the street side, looking at historic lighting in certain areas, looking at the wayfinding for the subway, for instance, are there fees set up for that already so that we can maybe make a rough estimate of how far this funding is going to go or how long it's going to last with the folks that request the use of it?
So are you looking at like the loan program? I think there's also within our like streetscape public realm, we're going to identify particular projects when it comes to overall spaces and probably provide some budget recommendations within that planning process of like what those are going to look like in terms of costs that can be built into future CIPs. I think when it comes to the soft cost grants for a particular project, it's going to be on a case-by-case and a project-by-project basis. So what one project might need, and it might just be like, I need to evaluate the structural component, I need a structural engineer. It's going to be different from somebody that really wants to understand what they could do with their facade. And so we want to provide a little bit of flexibility for that property owner to make that determination. And I think we can also work with them if there's some questions throughout that process.
So potentially, I'm not trying to be negative, don't take this the wrong way, but potentially there could be an inequitable distribution of soft costs to folks that perhaps ask for one thing and somebody else asks for less? Or I'm just wondering how you're gonna weigh, everybody gets what they need, or nope, you fell below the line. Nope, the soft costs are used up. Have you crossed that bridge yet? Are you considering that? Got any ideas for that one?
Well, I think right now we've established up to 125,000, and we're hoping to be able to do that annually. So part of it was we're also trying to encourage people to kind of move forward with their projects, recognizing that there are some limited funding. But I think there's opportunities if we need to, then we would have to evaluate timing and also be able to kind of communicate that out to the property owners when we do our larger communications plan about what is available funding currently and then what are future funding, so that if we do run out of funding for something, we can kind of say, hey, there's an opportunity next year at this time. We can either hold your application, or if you want to make a change, we can work with you that way as well.
Okay, thank you. And then, Ms. Woodward, when you were first sort of describing how this was going to work with the wayfinding, my brain sort of went to all these sexy things that, bottom line, what is the value to the public? And I want to make sure that the downtown businesses who have been struggling for so long with construction, with COVID, with things not coming back because Mayo is transitioning, there is such a list of things that is making it difficult for folks to gain the way forward downtown, that we're not throwing, I guess the phrase is good money after bad in a way, because wayfinding is really important. Lisa Clark talked about it when DMC was just formed, and here we are, 7 years later, we don't have a lot of wayfinding.
Is there a question?
Yep, it's coming. Palmer's looking at me too, saying, yeah, I got called out for the question. When are you gonna go, Kirkpatrick? All right, thank you. So yes, will there, no, there's not a question. No. I don't think there's a question. I think I just wanted to make that comment. So
Okay,
thank you
well,
very much.
Let's save our comments till after there's a motion. Is there a motion or questions? Councilmember Dennis.
So could someone, maybe, because there's just a blank screen here, maybe put up the map that there is, this red map of the historic district, just to kind of get a feel for this for people at home who can't make it here to the Civic Center, and for everyone here. So I hear wayfinding, we're talking a lot about this. I mean, if we have to have things for people to want to go to find their way to. So, I mean, that's a huge issue in making sure that businesses stay afloat, that there is fun, amazing things that people want to go to downtown. What I see that Broadway, my question, I have a couple questions, but one of my questions, and I'm bringing this back up because it is an issue. It was addressed a few months ago, but Broadway falls under the historic district. Is that correct? It's shaded in the red, or is that that's a question, I guess. Is that correct? Broadway?
There is a part of Broadway that is within the historic district.
Okay. Is that the part that had the fence? The fence that was installed by previous council to help prevent people from crossing the road while intoxicated? Is that area? Well, I guess it's not on the screen now anymore. I believe so. I'm kind of using my memory of where the fence was located. I believe that's right there where 4th Street is. It's just.
That's correct.
So that was part of the historic district that was installed. I've asked about how much that cost, and there wasn't quite numbers given, so if anyone has that. But I've talked to previous council members who were part of this, and I imagine Councilmember Keene and Councilmember Bransford might have been on this as well, but it took a lot of public engagement. It took a lot of convincing to spend that kind of money. So they installed that fence. And please jump in anytime to correct me if I'm not stating this. And then out of the blue, it just disappeared. And it did not come.
I'm in point of order. I'm all confused on what we're doing.
My question is about oversight. When
Okay,
things.
then ask a question about oversight. I'm sorry, Council President,
Well,
don't know what we're doing on the discussion. We have a thing in front of us on a policy question, a request for council action. We're talking about totally different stuff.
I hear that you are frustrated with this, Councilmember Keen, as is probably if you time this and hear how long my colleagues have elaborated on their, not questions or questions. My elaborating on this is to paint the picture.
Councilmember
and it
Dennis,
is
could we
dealing with
move
the
this to
question.
open other business? This is not
This is
germane
this.
to the topic.
It's not part of the historic district?
It's not germane to the loan programs and approval for a streetscaping design.
It's a.
Okay, I've made a
I
ruling
believe.
on it not being.
I believe it is germane because it
Okay,
is.
you are welcome to challenge my.
I would like to challenge that it is germane that we, as a council, should have some oversight if things were voted on and then just.
Okay, so pause there. Is there a second for continuing this conversation? Okay, is there a question specific to the loan program or the streetscaping in front of us?
Well, if there's no oversight in any of these programs, then I don't know what we are doing here, trying to even talk about programs if we are just not going to have.
Councilmember Dennis, you're out of order. Please continue in order.
Okay, part of our job as a council body is to have oversight of taxpayer dollars and of programs that we are implementing, and I am just elaborating on that program, which.
Councilmember Dennis, do you have a question about this agenda item?
I do. That was my first question. I guess I have a lot of other questions that have to do with, just wayfinding. We talk about lights. We talk about I feel very silenced about this, so I will hold my questions and publicly post them on social media. Thank you.
I'd like to move to approve the Heritage Preservation Incentives Package for Downtown Commercial Historic District.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'm not enamored with this. I'm surprised we're back in revolving loan projects, but I think I'm looking at this as a partner to what we did with the DMC and trying to partner with DMC to run these things. I want to make one comment about, they talk about regulatory and trying to improve processes. Sometimes that includes streamlining, which means it doesn't have to go through a Historic Preservation Commission all the time. And I think that's one thing that I've been watching for when we talk about process improvements, is we can't have everybody worried about what's going to happen when they go to these different bodies. So I appreciate the fact that we're differentiating in some of that Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and trying to keep things that, on the smaller dollar amounts, that are able to do staff approvals, before they get to other sort of public bodies where sometimes property owners don't know what's going to happen there.
I had the exact same comments. Don't love this, think it's worth giving a shot and seeing how it goes along the way. And also, it's a balance between how much review is required because we want to have a citizen engaged process and have formal review, and how much we want to support streamlining so our business and property owners can do the good work that they would like to do. So I think it's continuing to find that balance, and hopefully programmatically we will come up with a really good middle ground that supports citizen engagement, but our property owners as well. So thank you to the team for coming back. It's really, we had to have some faith in staff and DMC leadership to come back with this package, but I am really pleased that we've figured out a way to use our resources to support the district, so thank you. Councilmember Bransford?
Just appreciate all the hard work. I appreciate the fact that it's iterative. I appreciate the fact that, we all acknowledge that, it's not perfect. But I just wanted to say good job. There's a lot of good stuff in here, and it'll evolve. I mean, as we figure it out and work our way through this, both from a regulatory perspective and as the business owners weigh in how effective it is, this is the beginning, and I think it's a good start.
And I really think the streetscaping piece is one of the most
Yeah,
exciting
it's very
pieces of
important.
this, so.
It
thank
is.
you. Mayor?
Just quickly, I guess I just want to balance a little bit. I actually like that we're using a variety of different kinds of funding, that we have loans, that we have grants, that we have DMC funds. I like the revolving loan idea, because it can continue into the future. And I also, for the fact that there's been some concern raised by other businesses downtown who are saying that if, why fix up one building and allow someone to make a profit if they sell? A loan does, kind of offsets that a little bit. And seems more fair to some of the other businesses. And I will just acknowledge off the top that what has to be done on a historic building is far more expensive than some other buildings. But our regular building owners downtown also have challenges. And I think having this braided different kinds of funding helps negate that argument a little bit. And I was appreciative of that.
Well said. Councilmember Palmer.
Well, thank you. The comment I'd like to make would be on the public realm. I'm all in favor of that. I really want us to look at Broadway, though, and get it not to be a cavern of 4 lanes going down the road. I know Mr. Dombrowski probably isn't going to, I'm not looking at him, but he probably is not a big fan of doing it. But I think there's got to be a way for us from 6th Street southeast, southwest, up to 6th Avenue or 6th Street northwest to go down to 1 lane, add some parking, and make it easier for people to use that road. I'd like us to look at that with some of this ongoing items, because I think if we think outside the box, we can come up with some neat ideas that we can do there. And I'd be in supportive of doing something at Broadway to make it more user-friendly. There are 2 crossings on Broadway that we have, pedestrian crossings at the stoplights, and I'm down at the post office quite a bit, and it's probably one of the most dangerous intersections. I would like to see that change to be a pedestrian flashing light and let people walk across. But it'd be easier to walk across 2 lanes than it is 4. But I know our engineering department's really good, and they can come up with some really creative ideas, and I'm hoping that we look at that in Broadway.
Just point of order, is discussion on Broadway, since according to my discussion talking about how to break up Broadway and wayfinding with the fence being taken down, is this discussion even germane to this? Because my topic on Broadway was shut down. Just curious, just for consistency.
My ruling was because we are talking about a future streetscaping study, and you were asking about a previous council's decision and a removal to have oversight of a past decision, which was not relevant. Thinking about making a recommendation about having safe crossings, if that's what you're
That's
saying,
what I was leading into. I was leading into the fence being part of a safety measure that was taken down, and it was called not germane, and now Councilmember Palmer is talking about safety measures on Broadway, yet he is not gavelled for his safety measures when I was silenced for mine.
Councilmember Dennis, I've made my ruling. Do you have another comment on this?
It is,
item?
I believe, favoritism and targeted, but I believe that this should be noted that one person talking about Broadway safety is silenced, and someone else talking about Broadway safety is not.
Call the question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1 with Councilmember Dennis voting nay. The next item is formerly F6, which is the Silver Lake Phase 1 Park Improvements, authorization to bid for aquatics. Go ahead, Councilmember Dennis. Mr. Nigbur is here, or Mr. Widman and Mr. Nigbur are here if there are questions.
And just for clarification, I voted nay on that because I believe silencing a council member's concerns should.
Councilmember Dennis, you're out of order. Continue in order, please.
Well, thank you for not banishing me, Councilmember President. Okay. Well, going back, a lot of the discussions, and I do have other business to discuss the issues that I missed during the past
Councilmember
meeting.
Dennis, Silver Lake.
The Silver Lake, thank you. The Silver Lake, I pulled this because I am a huge fan of having Silver Lake pool. And I've talked to many people, and this is something that is needed, so I want to have it passed, but I don't want it to be passed without being the best that we can be. And I know we are shackled sometimes, or the wording is we are handcuffed to funding issues. I'm sorry if I'm not using my words correctly, but we do not want to just pass something and saying, oh, look, we have an extra pool. Because when Soldiers Fields opens up, which is phenomenal, I think we need to look at the pricing to get that lowered. I think that's not equitable for residents. But when we start to find out the pricing and people are able to utilize both pools, hopefully fairly and in our community, they're going to look at Silver Lake and say, it is nice to have a place to learn to swim. We need that for, we definitely need 2 pools in town. But when looking at the plans, I know this was brought up during study sessions and when we've looked at this before, it is a lap pool, and I feel that we could do better. We could add a slide. I know it's not deep enough in the plans for diving boards, but there are a lot of youth who do not have a peer network. And when I go with my kids to Silver Lake and I swim and I'm watching people, they go down, there's kids who maybe are on the autistic spectrum, that might be on, just alone, and they go up and down those slides because it's fun and they don't feel awkward and not being in the pool by themselves. I know mental health has not been a priority of this council, but it is a priority of humanity, and I feel that we need to focus on places of belonging for people who are not the social and have ability to. I feel very strongly that we should add a slide for those kids who need that.
Point
And
of
not-
order, should we have a motion before we?
I would like to, my motion, I'm getting a little bit,
Yep.
I mean, obviously, coming to council is very difficult, being around toxic work environment from people who banish and ostracise. So I
Member Dennis, you're
I
out of
do
order.
feel
Continue in
it's
order.
my job to advocate for kids and advocate for people of all ages who might also feel this not connection. And I
Point
would
of
like
order.
to,
Let's take a 5-minute recess and let Councilmember Dennis collect herself.
Thank you.
I do not need to collect myself. Thank you.
we were just about to talk about, or we were talking about the Silver Lake Phase 1 park improvements. Councilmember Dennis was sharing her perspective. Would you like to make a motion on the item now?
I have 8 minutes, correct? So I just would like to elaborate. I feel very strongly that we need places of belonging for everyone. Mental health is important. And when I'm using youth, but it could be any age, it could be, anyone who's using the pool. I think we need to see what it would cost to add a slide. Something that is attractive for people in the neighborhood, people from Adaptive Rec, people who come and are able to have Silver Lake as their neighborhood pool, to have something fun to attract. I won't tell you all the people I've talked to about this issue. It is great to have the pool. I'm going to definitely vote for this pool. But when you are around youth, like I have been in my profession as a teacher in special education and in different organizations with youth, there is a need for an individual kind of activity so that if someone is being bullied, as we are well aware on council here, what bullying is like, I'm well aware of it. We want to make sure that youth has something that kids can have something where they feel connected and want to come, and they don't have to necessarily be a social bee or be around other youth. They can come and be part of a community, like I know from experiences with my own family with autism or other neurodivergency. Sometimes it's nice to have something that meets those needs. So I would like to go back and see how much it would cost. I know we can't look at maybe depths of pools and liabilities, and I know there's staffing ratios, but we should build it right the first time. And if that means moving things around to see how much it costs to add a slide, I think it would be worth it, because we need to make sure that our city truly is welcoming and inclusive to everyone. Thank you.
What is your motion then?
I would like to propose adding a slide. I mean, we can talk about the logistics of it.
If I can help with this, I think the motion is to reject the final design and ask the park staff to come back with other amenities and associated costs.
That's very worded nicely. Thank you.
So that's your motion?
That sounds great.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
All right, Councilmember Palmer, you have the floor.
Well, I would vote to approve it off the top. And so there's a sense of belonging in Silver Lake. Pool is important to everybody. The need for that pool is for a teaching pool, add water aerobics, add a water park. If we have an 8-foot deep pool, which is my understanding that we're going to have an 8-foot pool, in a year from now or 2 years from now, you can add a slide. You can add a wall. You can see what's needed out there. The problem with some of these pools, and you see that at other areas, is that they build it and then they don't add anything to it. And I have a great confidence that with an 8-foot deep pool that we can add a slide to it later on and make it more inviting for everybody. And I think this pool is different than Soldiers Field for a reason. The teaching pool is necessary, the water aerobics, be able to swim laps, be able to have a splash pad next door, and having older kids go in, throw the football around, or have deeper water to learn how to swim is important. So, hanging this up for just adding something that can be added in the near future, they're not that expensive to add. So I don't really want to delay this, because I driving to work here today, they were swimming in the Silver Lake pool. It was open. There's lots of kids there. In August, they like to tear that pool down, so it's open for next spring or summer. We'll go June.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick?
Thank you. That's exactly why I seconded for discussion, because I wanted that to come out. I am all for this pool the way it is. I want it to have an 8-foot depth so that we can do the specific Red Cross training, the swimming that needs to be done, and I would like to hear from staff that it is going to have an 8-foot depth, but I agree with everything that you said, Councilmember Palmer. The amenities can be added. I'm hopeful that they will be added. I'm hopeful that perhaps community groups and/or some way we can find funding so that a couple of those amenities can go in right away when the pool opens next year. But I appreciate this pool coming forward. This is my neighborhood pool. I hear the kids every day from Boys and Girls Club or from other parts of the neighborhood walking to that pool. It's an important pool to have open, and it needs to stay open, and the price is right. So please tell me it's going to have an 8-foot depth so that amenities can be added sooner rather than later.
Council President, Mayor, council members. Yes, the plan right now, and I shared that within the narrative to the RCA, that for at least or about $10,000 or less, it'll be an 8-foot pool. That's our plan right now. Barring some big change that we find out later on in the design process that it's more than that, then we'd come back to you for some additional dollars. But right now, the plan is 8-foot depth. I'm sorry, yeah, 8-foot depth as part of the project.
Groovomatic, thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Key.
While it's up, I'm a little confused, because the 8-foot is in a certain part of it, or is it, because that's not a good teaching pool to be 8 foot deep.
It'd be a shallow end and a
Yeah,
deep end.
okay,
So
all right,
8 foot
so
at
it's
the
a
deep
part-
end.
all right.
Yeah, not the entire length.
Yeah, and it is near the, I mean, from the 0 depth walking in, it's like a 4 foot, 3 and 4 foot?
3.5 foot, yep.
3.5 foot? and
Correct.
That's how I understood it. Now, I didn't know all that details in here, I didn't see it, but,
The intent originally was to have a 3.5 foot to 6 foot depth.
Yep.
And the questions came up by council members previously about what that additional cost would be. Through our analysis, we came up with that additional $10,000 approximately would be
right.
that
but-
maximum cost.
But again, there's a trade-off there to make it a better lap pool, this other stuff. You're going away from it being a training pool, which was the main justification for why we backed this. And I don't want to make it so that it's not a good pool for training because we made it too deep.
I believe, based on the swim club's input, 8 foot would still suffice for that training activity that's been desired.
But as long
well
as there
other-
is the
everything
3.5
else.
foot for.
That shallow one would still be in place, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Palmer?
Just, we have Mr. Nagberg up here. Basically, what you're really gonna build is the old YMCA pool. You're gonna have 3.5 foot deep, it's gonna go to a deep 8-foot section.
Yes, correct.
That's- Mr. Keen understands that, so.
Yeah, that's.
It's still, that's a great teaching pool.
All right, should we vote on the amendment, or Councilmember Dennis, additional comments?
Yeah, I have a question. So I guess maybe this is my background, but I have seen it cost more money to build something the way you want it and then come back and tear it up and chisel into concrete and build and add a slide, which is not guaranteed, because as we know, we have not prioritized a lot of activities for youth as I think our city should have in the past. So what would be a kind of a ballpark, just adding a slide when this is being built? Like, I'm sure it's been, I'm not sure, I imagine with the Soldiers Field and slides have been priced out. Is there a kind of a ballpark on what it would be just to add a slide so we do this the right way to be inclusive of all people?
So I think the unknown that we have is what's that slide gonna look like? What do you have in your own minds of what that may be? I think from a price point standpoint, you can go probably from $50,000 to $150,000 pretty easily and still get a nice slide into the pool. So if I were saying a number right now, I'd say on the high end, 150 would get you what you're looking for. Again, not knowing what your desires actually are.
I think we should add, I mean, I feel like if we just voted now to add 150 with kind of the,
So the point of order, the motion on the thing is to reject the bid, and so let's stay on that one and either get it voted up or down and then go to the next action. Because the motion is not to get a bid and then to do a different vote on
Yeah.
that.
I feel like since, I don't want it to be delayed. I want the work to be done so kids and the community has this pool. But I also, I'm a hopeful Pollyanna, a visionary
So-
thinker, but I don't want to, you can't
Recall the
guarantee
question?
that there's going to be a vote in the future
Yep.
to add a pool. So I would like to add it now.
We have a request to call
I mean,
a
a
vote on
slide.
the amendment, so we're gonna do that, and then we'll get back to you, Mr. Nigber. So all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, motion fails.
May-
Mr. Nigber?
Make a motion.
Nope, I'd like Mr. Nigber to speak, whatever he was gonna say, and then we'll turn it over to Councilmember Palmer.
Thank you. Just for clarification on the schedule of the project. So the idea is that, Councilmember Palmer talked about being done in 2025. The idea being starting construction in August of 2024. We construct in 2025, open in 2026. So again, we'd have a full year of construction plus, knowing we're taking down the hill by about 3 feet, demolishing the building, kind of getting a better timeline for the entire project.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Councilmember Palmer, a motion?
Thank you for that clarification. I'll make a motion for the Silver Lake Phase 1 improvements, authorize the bid for aquatics.
Second.
Councilmember Palmer, you have the floor.
It's needed in this area, and I'm glad that we're finally getting a new bathhouse and getting that hill taken care of, and I'm looking forward to this opening in 2026. Thank you.
Other discussion? Councilmember Keen?
Just to clarify, I think I fully understand the motion, but it's authorized the final design and the bidding associated.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so Councilmember Dennis, did you want to make an amendment?
Yes, I would like to amend the motion to add the max of 150,000, if we can get lower, of course, but for, to add a slide into this project at the same time as the pool is being designed.
Is there a second? All right, back to the original motion. Any other discussion? Councilmember Keen?
Yeah, I guess I'll just say, in our packet, we've been on this discussion since January of 2023. There's about 9 different, no, more than that, 11 different times we've gone through this. This is the design we ended up on, and to come to this meeting now and try to change it, it just feels like it's bad business. We've sent the park staff off to do this design, and we should be consistent.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick, a question?
Thank you. Why is it taking 2 years to do this pool, but Soldiers Field only took a year?
We're special for Soldiers Field. Technically, we crammed a lot of work in 1 year for Soldiers Field. We think that to do it properly, to do it right, and have proper timing, we learned a lot of things in this process that we do differently. We'd ask for 2 years for Soldiers Field if we could do it again. We got darn lucky with the winter that we had very low snow, very good working weather, have had a terrible spring, so again, we're kind of making up for it. But doing 2 pools in 2 years is rather challenging. We have no contractor online yet. We have no design finished yet. It's tough.
Could it possibly open at the end of the summer?
Not likely.
Okay, I appreciate your honesty and thank you for answering that, because with the land that's being moved, but it's a much smaller structure, I figured it could be done in a year, but understanding that Soldiers Field had its questions, its answers, and changes if we do it in the future again, makes sense.
Although we wouldn't have let you open it next year. We want that pool open. Councilmember Palmer.
Well, and to repeat what you just told us a little while ago, is that we're lowering the elevation by more than 3 feet. We also have a new bathhouse we're building, and we're placing it in a whole different location. And so that's a lot more construction than just a simple remodel that you did at Soldiers Field.
That is correct.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you, guys. All right, moving on to formerly F7, which is now H5, development support for our senior affordable housing project at West Transit Village. Go ahead, Councilmember Dennis, and we have Josh Johnson here for questions.
Yes, I just wanted to pull this because for a couple questions, I mean, I think it's, we've talked about it, and I've talked about in some of the previous discussions about making sure that when we talk about affordable, we also talk about quality of life. And when we have buses coming in, 18 hours a day, that lights and I just want to, just reiterate that, people have, that all of the things have been covered to make sure that, that people have a good environment. And then also with the DMC, helping with funding and this adding to transportation up and downtown, I think it just adds into just making sure that our downtown is, I keep saying truly a destination, but I really want to support businesses. I want to make sure that when we bring more housing, that there's not going to be a food desert. There's going to be, places for people to, and I know Hy-Vee and things are, but I pulled it just to make sure that that those kind of things for a quality of life have been thoroughly looked at, so that we don't put people into affordable homes and then have them not be in a good location for
for life. So I guess I'm moving to approve, but I have questions to ask.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Dennis, you have the floor.
Okay. So I just wanted to throw this back to staff and some of the questions that were asked about, making sure that people who live in this affordable housing has parking, that if they care to have, to make sure that they have some say in blocking out this constant, perhaps light and traffic. I worry that we sometimes don't look at, making sure that not just accessibility, but also just the quality of life. And when we build affordable, we think, well, it's better to have a roof over our heads and not. So we just forsake some of these basic human needs. So I just would hope that the staff could just kind of reiterate that all of that has been addressed and that it is going to be a housing complex that people here in this room would want to live in.
Thank you, Councilmember Dennis. I'll take the first go, and then I'll let Ms. Steinhauser add anything that I might forget. But I would say, there's plenty of case studies that transit spurs economic development. It spurs economic development because it's typically a very attractive place for people to live. They can live with the freedom of transportation and not be beholden to their vehicle payments. That obviously also makes living near transit more affordable. This is going to be a very attractive development. That's why they're going to have the ability to have market rate and affordable housing, because it's going to be a place that everyone wants to live. In terms of traffic and vehicles, it's going to be a very slow street. It's going to be quite narrow. It's going to have parking on both sides of it, so that'll reduce traffic. The buses are all going to be electric fleet, which reduces noise, reduces pollution. There's not going to be a lot of surface parking, so you won't have, people with their lights on. The parking eventually is going to be underneath the market rate development, so that parking will be shielded. By going vertical with parking, you create more room for development, so that's the reason for the ramp. It's going to have access to retail. It's going to have direct access to the trail system, to Cascade Lake, to Cascade Park, to downtown, to home. So I think that's probably some of the elements that I hopefully can reassure you that it's going to be a very attractive place for people to live. It's going to be in high demand.
Okay. And then it's a guaranteed for affordability. Can you just talk about real quick the AMI and the guarantee that it will stay affordable for residents in the future?
Yeah, so whenever we do an affordable housing project, we define a term that it must remain affordable. In the past, it's usually been like 30 years. I think MHFA also has requirements if they're going to receive state funding. So right now, the proposal is 94 units, and the AMI makeup is 30% and 50%. So I believe like 20% of the building is actually to serve household at 30% AMI. So pretty low or pretty deep subsidy for affordable housing.
All right, thank you.
Mayor?
Sure, I was just going to, I think, partially respond to Councilmember Dennis's concerns. I took the time to drive up to Minneapolis a couple of years ago and tour an Aon facility, one of their really wonderfully environmentally conscious facilities, and had a chance to talk to the folks from Aon about what they learned from that. And I think this idea of sustainability and building really energy efficient homes is super important, particularly when we're talking about low income homes, because it helps not only cut the cost of the rental for people when you build the affordable home, but it also cuts the cost of the utilities, which in cheaply built homes and ones that don't utilize the IRA and all the things that we have now, just elevate costs for people that are already struggling from day to day. So I'm very excited that Aon is working with the city on this project. I was thrilled with the place in the Twin Cities, the Rose that I visited. You could not, the apartments for the market rate and the apartments for affordable were the same apartments. There was not change in quality. They were beautiful. So just wanted to assure Councilmember Dennis that at least from what I've seen from this company, I was thrilled, and I'm glad they're interested in coming to Rochester.
Thanks, Mayor. Any final discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right, we're moving on to ordinance first readings, and there is one today, which is the annexation number CD 2024-002A annex by First Unitarian Universalist Church. And Mr. Carlson, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Council President Carlson, Mayor Norton, rest of the council. Brent Carlson, Deputy City Attorney, and I'll be taking us through the first and second readings tonight. There's one first reading, item J1, an ordinance annexing to the City of Rochester approximately 35 acres of land located at the southeast corner of Viola Road Northeast and East Circle Drive Northeast.
Okay.
There,
Moving on to 5 second readings. Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Item K1, an ordinance designating Reed, Murdoch & Co. / Libby, McNeil and Libby / Seneca Foods Canning Co. Water Tower, also known as the Ear of Corn Water Tower, a historic landmark structure, removing the Ear of Corn Water Tower from historic inventory list and amending the official zoning map as referenced in 60.200.020 parens A of the Unified Development Code of the City of Rochester.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Keen?
Nothing to add.
Any discussion?
I'm just going to say whoop.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. K2?
Item K2, an ordinance designating the Edward and Lydia Rossnow family residence a historic landmark site and amending the official zoning map as referenced in 60.200.020 parens A of the Unified Development Code of the City of Rochester.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
Nothing to add.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. K3?
An ordinance designating part of Silver Lake Park located north of 7th Street Northeast as a historic landmark site, removing Silver Lake Park from the historic inventory list and amending the official zoning map as referenced in 60.200.020 parens A of the Unified Development Code of the City of Rochester.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
Oh my gosh. So eager. Councilmember Palmer, you have the floor.
No, enough said.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. K4?
An ordinance designating the Downtown Commercial Historic District a historic landmark district, removing the downtown district properties from the historic inventory list, and amending the official zoning map as referenced in 60.200.020 parens A of the Unified Development Code of the City of Rochester.
Move approval.
Second.
Councilmember Keen?
Nothing to add.
Any other discussion?
Again, whoop.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1 with Councilmember Palmer voting nay. K5?
An ordinance designating Soldiers Field Memorial Park a historic landmark site, removing Soldiers Field Memorial Park from the historic inventory list, and amending the official zoning map as referenced in 60.200.020 parens A of the Unified Development Code of the City of Rochester.
Move approval.
Second.
Councilmember Keen?
Nothing to add.
Any other discussion?
This one I'm very excited about. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. That was a lot of historic landmarking. Good work.
Yeah, nice.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carlson. We do not have any tabled items. I think there are a few items of other business tonight. Councilmember Palmer, then Keen.
Yeah, I listen about our CIAs, and so what I'd like to do is suggest a study session, and that would be for the 6th Street clock. I'd like to get some information on that and see where we're at with that. I don't know if we need 4 nods of heads or what, just to get information.
I would like to know that too. Every time I drive by that, I'm wondering what's going on. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
All right, that's good enough for a study session, so
Thank you.
for that topic. Councilmember Keen?
I want to follow up on open comments regarding Mr. Busby and Ms. Lex from today. It wasn't said, but I want to offer to my peers and the public that I'm the council member that he's referring to. Like the rest of the elected officials, I received a note from Mr. Busby disparaging one of our teammates. And I looked and there was nobody from staff on there, and I sent it on to staff. And I did say in there that I'm sending out so that you know what this information is, but I don't want or expect you to act on it. I stand by that I would do that. And I'm actually bothered by Mr. Busby. The relationship here is difficult for me. We hire a company to do our transit work, and they have employees and a union, and that union steward sees it fit to go around his company and around our staff to come to this elected body and bring us information about what's going wrong usually. Sometimes it's valuable. It's good to know what those things are. But I am uncomfortable with the relationship of a union steward from a company that we do business with coming directly to us. And I'd rather that not be there, but he has every right to come here and do what he wants to say. I think I'm going to back my statement that I'm not going to act on what he does when he comes to these meetings. So I want to just get that out there.
Thanks, Councilmember Keen. Other business? Councilmember Dennis?
Thank you. I do wish that more people would be able to come to these meetings. I know it's a difficult time for many to make it, but people who are like Mr. Busby, the residents who showed up here tonight, I think the more public engagement we have, the better. So, but I wanted there's a lot of other things going on. I know there is this pamphlet, flyer coming out with things like the Forward Counselor Series, different things happening. I would really hope that people can reach out and see the amazing things that public music and the community is doing to promote places of belonging. June is also Pride Month, so I wore a little lapel pin and to celebrate that. But I want to just say we want to make this the most inclusive and welcoming city that we can to foster our not just core values and priorities and principles, but just because it's the right thing to do. I have a lot to cover. I wanted just to address what happened in the last council meeting. I feel that is a very important.
Attorney Carlson, please weigh in.
Thank you. Councilmember Dennis, this is not the appropriate time to talk about what happened at the prior meeting. If you feel there has been some type of injustice or abuse of authority, you have been informed on your avenues through the Ethical Practices Board.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
I will be filing a complaint. But what I wanted to make a note, because with the unmerited silencing banishment, I was unable to speak for some of the following important topics that residents had reached out to me. And I won't go into why I couldn't talk about it. I will go through other avenues, but I do want to comment on the one issue with the airport. I know many of my colleagues voted for that. I would not have voted for that. I believe price would have outweighed convenience, and people in Ward 6 did not, and people who I've talked to throughout Rochester, felt it was a gamble for their tax dollars that was not guaranteed to invest. I also have talked to people in Rochester who say that they routinely drive up. I won't use the company's name, but a company here in town that routinely drives up to the cities to pick up physicians a couple times a day because they do not believe in the reliability of our airport, and therefore just hire a shuttle service from Rochester. This happens a couple times a day because Mayo doctors need to be in surgery, and there's the very, very strict schedules. And so I feel that that was something that needed to be on the record, that I would have listened to the residents and not voted for what people have considered a gambling of their taxpayer dollars in that motion last council meeting. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about accountability with audits. I know the state's maybe looking into some of the things that are, spending and things happening here in Rochester, and I feel that's important that we have accountability in all departments for tax dollars because we want to use dollars efficiently.
Point of order here. Is that an accusation that the state? I have no
No,
knowledge.
I'm just saying. I reached out. I'm for transparency.
Sorry, I've got point of order. The statement was made that the state is looking into it. Can someone in staff explain something to me, or just shut this conversation down?
Mr. Parrish.
Yeah, Mayor, President, members of the council, I can say unequivocally that we are not aware of any state evaluation of our finances. We, of course, comply with all the audit requirements. We're great stewards of our resources. And so I just, I want to rest assured that there's been no alleged impropriety. We are not under any specific audit. And I think maybe just a good opportunity, this is always something, I think you live in your rules a lot, but just as a reminder as you go into these types of conversations, Rule 3, remarks and debate for you all. Item C, courtesy, members of the council shall be courteous in their language and demeanor in the discussion, comments, or debate of any matter, and shall not engage in disorderly behavior, make personal comments, derogatory remarks, or insinuations in respect to any other member of the council, staff, or public. So that's your expectation of behavior for yourself. Of course, that's self-police, but I think it's always important just to be bearing that in mind as you go into these conversations and, hold yourself to that high standard that you've set out for yourself.
Well, point of clarification, I'm not insinuating, you, Mr. Parrish, were on the email that was sent to the State Auditor's Department, but I do feel that it's...
Your Honor, just as a clarification.
Sure, Mr. Parrish.
Yes, I was on an email that you sent, but no action has happened based on the result of that email whatsoever.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish. Can you move on to your next item?
Well, I was going to address the need for civility and respect and on city council that I believe ties into recent situations, so I will have to do that in other methods because I guess I will have to do that on the ethics board about the entire council. I don't know how this is working if I can't address issues that are on the thoughts of many people who witnessed what happened and reached out across the city with
Councilmember
absolute
Dennis,
disgust.
You've already been warned.
I
Please just move on. Otherwise, Councilmember Kirkpatrick has an item.
So my other items were what was covered in the council meeting the last council meeting. So I will reach out to staff and hopefully I can have things. I don't want to use up staff time. However, because all of those items I was not able to because I was banished unprecedentedly and unmeritedly, I will have to reach out and hopefully have meetings with staff on all of those items that I missed to have be updated and have my questions answered if it can't be done on the dais. So that is just for the council to know. That was per your decision, Council President, and
Councilmember Dennis, we're done. Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. Mr. Parrish, I mentioned this to you before the meeting, but I just want to bring it up for everybody else. I think everybody's aware of my reluctancy to renew the Lime scooter contract when it came to us the second time for 2 years because of the enforcement portion of it. And I did go ahead and say yes to the 5-year contract with the caveat that there was enforcement. I thought that was a piece that was really critical. I have had a few constituents reach out to me, and I have also witnessed myself once a wheelchair-bound resident or visitor or patient who is obstructed from using the trail and crossing the intersection at Highway 14, the Beltline, and Broadway because scooters get left there. It's one thing for all of us, I believe, being able-bodied to be able to move a scooter out of the way, but when the scooters are being left in places where our most vulnerable residents, visitors, or patients can't get past them, that bothers me. I don't know what we can do about that. I don't know if we can talk to Lime. I don't know if there's some sort of reporting that can be done, but I would just really like that looked into because they're useful. They're very useful tools. The data was important that Ms. Wilson put together, and the work that you and I, Mr. Parrish, did with Ms. Wilson when we went to the 2-year contract. I think they're very useful, but problems are still existing, and I'm a staunch advocate for our patients and visitors and residents to be safe, the riders and those that are left with dealing with the litter or the leftover usage of those scooters.
I'd be supportive of at least looking, asking what's happening in other communities to prevent that type of scenario. I don't know if staff have it.
We're happy to
Go
do
ahead.
some follow-up
Okay,
evaluation.
thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much, and thank you for indulging me, Mr. Parrish. I just wanted everyone to hear that. Thank you.
Good point. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. It's been that I've dealt with, I actually go around and move them.